You're listening to the Cantina Cast, your home for thought-provoking Star Wars talk. Join Albert and Jonesy in breaking down the latest news, trailers, movies, and of course, your favorite characters from a galaxy far, far away.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Cantina Cast. My name is Barry White, and this is episode 422, the Obi-Wan Kenobi Breakdown Part 6. There's a lot to discuss with this episode. Again, very similar to the last episode. I think everything I've probably been texting Jonesy has been in all caps. There's been a lot of the moments that we were looking forward to and anticipating and speculating on and theorizing came true. And we had a couple moments that did not. And we're going to break all this down and get into all these great details. And speaking of great details, and by the way, you've mentioned this already, but for anybody that's watching the live stream and for anybody that's listening to the podcast, first off, Jonesy's with us tonight. Jonesy, thanks for being here.
Thank you. You said Barry White. I swear to God, you were going to say Barry Manilow instead. But okay.
No, I've just, yeah.
I went over the head of a lot of our young listeners.
Well, they have no idea. Yeah. I'll sing a couple songs here in just a little bit, but if you want to show them the hairstyle you're supporting there, look at that. That's in honor of our. Well, hey, that's in honor.
Dangerous, man.
In honor of our lovely Force Ghost that made a finally made appearance here at the very end of this episode, Qui-Gon Jinn. So,
and pretty much exactly like we said he was going to, which I mean, again, wasn't super creative on our part, but it happened. It's a win.
It's a win. It checked the box for me, but. More on that later. We've got at least 30 pages of show notes dedicated just to that one scene. So get ready. So, and for anybody that's joined us for the live stream for the first time or you're back again, thanks for being here. We do record these every Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we'll be talking about Patreon in just a little bit. But
we've got quite the crowd already, man. This is cool.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of people here tonight. Thanks everybody. And hopefully you guys can stay up. I jokingly said in Twitter, pack a lunch. Bring your blankie, do whatever you need to do, but this could be another 2-hour show.
I warned him, man. Put the coffee on, put the tea on, whatever it takes to keep you up. Just don't get too comfortable because it's gonna be a wild ride.
And I'm under the weather, but I am drugged like you wouldn't believe right now. I've got every over-the-counter drug in me to get me through this show because we have to talk about this. But
yeah, we can't wait on this.
All right, let's get into the news. Oh wait, there's no news. Do we have any news?
What I put in there, Kenobi ended was kind of epic.
I know that sucks because this time next week we're not going to be talking about Kenobi.
Won't have anything to talk about. We're going to be done.
No, that's not.
That is not true.
Not true at all. But we got a lot of Patreon news, so let's get that out of the way just real quick.
Yeah, we do. We got a new member to Patreon, which is super exciting. Brett, who's in the live chat with us here, joined up on the Green Milk literally minutes before we came on air. So that's super exciting, and I always give Albert a nice hard time about that because then he has to go update the credits, and then he's like, "Well, I don't have them updated." Because it literally happened 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
But we're actually going to make a few changes to Patreon here. And so while we've been touting our special thanks to our plus a little extra folks, Mike, Robin, Kathy, thank you guys. We're actually renaming that to now part of the tribe. And we're going to add a new perk to that, which will be that anytime that we are going to do a Patreon show where we're going to invite members from the community on to join us, you guys will have the very first considerations to that. So anytime we're going to invite someone on, we'll reach out to y'all, see if you're interested, see if you have the time, if the timing, all that works, and we'll extend that and make that part of the perk. And what's also really cool is we're adding a new tier that we're calling Delusions of Grandeur, because why not? And so basically what that one is, at that tier, after 3 consecutive months of being at that tier, you are guaranteed an invitation to join us for a Patreon episode. And you will choose the topic. So we've had something like this in the past where we'll invite someone on or we'll talk, but it's all been very at our discretion. But if you guys want to join that tier and you stick with us, it's going to be your show. So look, if you are really, really looking for that Maz Kanata character breakdown, this is the way to make sure that it gets done and that yours truly, Albert Padilla, has to do it.
No, you explicitly put in there Jones. Well, you know what? You're very sneaky because in the text you said Jonesy and or Albert have to approve. So you could technically.
I always put your name first because it's alphabetical, but yes.
Well, but either way, but I'm saying technically you could approve like a Maz Kanata, show. We commit, and then I got to follow through with it. So that's not cool. Not cool at all.
But that's the way the cookie crumbles.
This is exciting. We got, there's a lot of demand for people to come be a part of the show in other ways. And traditionally we've kind of, like Jonesy mentioned, we've had these Patreon shows in the past. I've been mentioning, we've been kind of hinting that we were going to bring this back at some point. And I think this is probably the best way to do it. So there'll always be other types of things that we bring folks on, or of course we've got Discord and other ways that we engage with the community. But for this kind of a event, or being able to get up here and kind of voice your opinion, say what you need to say, we've got a large platform, and let's use it to get everybody else's opinions and thoughts out there. So
I like where Rob's at. All about Zero the Hutt.
There we go. And we'll just do the voice the entire time.
Oh, I wish you could do it, but it would probably really hurt you.
Yeah, it would. Okay, so that's all very exciting. So thank you again for
where can they find it?
Brett, cantinacast.com/Patreon.
And then, definitely thank you to Brett for joining on. We appreciate it, man.
Yep. And on top of all that, we mentioned in the last episode we would be coming back to Patreon episodes because now we're past Kenobi. Our first Patreon episode returning will be this Tuesday, the 28th, and it's going to be a Reva character dissection. So we'll take the character Reva, kind of talk about her journey beginning to end. There's going to be a lot. I've already been doing some show notes, talking about some of the parallels of other characters. I posted something on Twitter. Someone had said, I don't really understand her character storyline at all. And so I kind of went into a little bit of detail with a number of Twitter tweets.
You're cute. A little bit of detail.
Which, oh my goodness. And it just, now it's like, I open the flood door every time I do this, but my DMs just get flooded with kind of crazy, all kinds of crazy people. So, and I've been defending myself all for the last 2 days, but it was worth it. And it just got me thinking, that's probably a good place to start. Even though this is an
excellent place to start.
Yeah. And even if it's a character that we know hasn't passed on and there's potential more, she has a very solid beginning to end arc. And again, whether you agree, like the story or not, all the pieces are there that would make for a good quality episode, I think. So that'll be
where she ended up was really cool. We're going to pull a lot of that apart tonight, but I'm excited to actually look at her total arc as more of a complete package that we can really focus on and see where she came from, where she went, and maybe what's next.
Yep. Do you want to talk just quickly? I don't want to put you on the spot because Steph brought her up, so I'm going to blame her. But she said, bring back Cantina After Dark. So CAD, we've been talking about bringing this back, and I'm okay talking about it if you want to talk about it.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so Cantina After Dark is coming back, although it is going to be a little bit different. So historically, Cantina After Dark was kind of this impromptu, off-the-script kind of show where we brought people, mostly people from EGM, the network, on and talk about that. However, again, because of demand, we've had a lot of people over the years have always asked, hey, how come you guys don't do interviews? How come you don't bring other guests on and do get these kinds of things? And we definitely have had plenty of opportunities. It's just that was never kind of the formula for the show.
It's really hard to do it well, too, to be honest with you.
Exactly. Yeah. I think a lot of times you listen to some of these interviews and they're very surface level, or they're not really asking the right questions, in my opinion. So that said, we are going to bring back Cantina After Dark, and this is going to be just like that. We'll be bringing on different people from the Star Wars creative universe. So if they're a Star Wars creator, they could be an author, they could be somebody that has another show, podcast, YouTube channel, something. But bring those folks on to kind of spread the wealth in terms of voices, opinions, and some of the inside, behind the scenes stuff, especially with some of the more, the creators that exist in the Lucasfilm space and the Disney space. So I won't say anything more than that. We've got a couple people already lined up, and we'll be providing more details very soon. And look forward to it. It's going to be so exciting because, again, it's just something we've always wanted to do, and just never did it. So it felt like this was the right kind of format to do it.
Yeah,
and
it's really
anything
cool.
To that? Sorry.
Yeah, no. We've made so many new connections with not only the podcast community and the live stream community, but with authors and people kind of in and around Star Wars that it's just, the more you talk to them, just the more excited you get about some of these things. And the way that we do our show is quite different than what a lot of other podcasts do when they bring guests on, or just in general, but when they bring guests on. And that's what we really want to do. We want to do something that brings the Cantina Cast style of doing things, of getting into the weeds and really get some of these folks to talk to us at that kind of level and let their inner geek shine too, right? And not just kind of do the surface level stuff of a book or something like that, you know, but really get into the meat, the meat of it and what's going on and what were they thinking and talk about the characters, rather than, I mean, the writing process and things like that are fun too, right? But
Sure.
But the characters where that's really our bread and butter and what we enjoy the most. But so it's super exciting that this is something that we're going to bring to the screen and bring to your mailbox or your app or whatever it is.
Yep. All right. So look forward to that. Pretty exciting stuff.
So many changes, man.
Yeah.
Kenobi ends, but a whole new slew of things comes out.
One door closes, another door opens.
Right.
It's like I don't even know you anymore.
Well,
hey, Jonesy.
What's up, Albert?
So I think before we get into the show, one of the more interesting and surprising things that happened in this Kenobi series was the Bacta scene tank, because it was just cool to see Kenobi in a Bacta tank. I wasn't expecting that. What do you think?
Well, he certainly classed up the joint because he didn't have the big boy diapers that Luke and Boba Fett wanted to wear. So it was definitely an improvement. Yes,
and Kenobi in true form was wearing like something that looked a little bit more comfortable, higher quality, more stylish than Boba Fett and Luke Skywalker. And these are traits that you normally wouldn't associate with somebody in the budding Rebel Alliance, right? Everything's usually dirty, dingy, hand-me-downs, stuff that's been going on or used for, years prior to that.
Right. Yeah. And speaking of comfort and quality and style and alliances, we've teamed up with MeUndies, which is loungewear, underwear, all sorts of onesies, as you're a fan of here, to bring our listeners and our supporters a really great deal from MeUndies. We spoke about this a couple of times, and we're excited to do it again with them here.
And I'm here to officially testify that I told everybody I was going to be packing my undies, the stuff that they've given us, to Celebration. All of it held up really well. Like the underwear were great. These guys didn't see them though. We were all sharing an apartment. I didn't show anybody. But that's not true. But the socks, though, were the ones that was the one that I was really worried about, because we're walking all day long. Are the socks going to hold up?
They made a huge difference, man.
They had a huge difference. Now the shoes. Now I'm starting to really question the quality of my shoes, but the socks did a pretty darn good job. So I'm pretty excited about that. On top of that, you can also join where they kind of send you this, one kind of a pair of underwear or socks or whatever once per month. And more recently, and I sent Jonesy a picture of this. So remember, if you guys remember the last time we talked about this, I signed up for, quote, the fun category, right? Where I get all these kind of weird, crazy patterns. I got the coolest pattern ever, and it is unicorns. I'm not making this up. It's unicorns, but with like rainbow hair. And the cool thing about these is the rainbow hair, the hair is made from like metallic threading.
Oh, wow.
So it shimmers. You couldn't tell in the picture I sent you, but
I'm getting all sorts of mental images here, Albert.
I know. This is really probably not what you want to hear. But
it's getting hot over here, man.
Well,
I don't know about you.
Yeah, it is a little warm here, but it's probably my fever. But it is, but yeah, it's got like a little shimmer to it. So if I can move in the wind, like in the mirror, I get like a mermaid tail kind of effect going. Anyways, it's really great stuff. It's not, the quality of it is pretty substantial. And the other thing too, just quickly as an anecdote, now when I go to my underwear drawer, which is the third drawer, if you're going from top to bottom, it's on the third drawer in case you want to know. But when I open that drawer up, like that's the first pair of socks that I always grab, or the first pair of underwear I always grab every single time, because they've always held up really well too. Every time they've been in the dryer a number of times, and the elastic is still stretchy, the fabrics are still soft, the stitching's still intact. So it's just couldn't talk about this enough.
I'm with you. I actually get excited whenever the package comes in the mail, because we get this a new something every month. And again, this is stuff that we're paying for. And so it's really cool to be able to, I don't know, I never thought I'd get excited about clothes in the mail. I mean, I kind of see why people think this is a thing, but it's cool. I mean, I get just kind of the normal, I'm not as near as adventurous as Albert is, but they're comfortable, they're cool, they're all the things that you want in undergarments. And so guys, you really need to go check these out. Yeah. I mean, they make the softest fabrics you've ever put on your body. You can sit on your couch all day. You can go out. You can live your comfiest life. Once you try their undies, socks, bralettes, loungewear, you'll never go back. Choose from a limited range or unlimited range of limited edition prints, colors, sizes, everything from extra small up to 4XL. You can even sign up for their free to join MeUndies membership, which we've just been talking about, where you get a monthly subscription that sends new styles right to your door. Plus, enjoy up to 30% off of virtually everything that they make. Free shipping, free returns on every order, and you get early access to new launches, like they did with the Star Wars. They've actually released a couple other ones here recently too.
Yeah.
And you get exclusive
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, Jurassic Park
just came out. Yep.
Yeah, there you go. And then you also get access to exclusive member only sales.
Look at that. And just to clarify, we've got Lauren testifying that MeUndies is good, and it's real. So
we don't pay her at all. Promise.
Yeah, we don't pay her. And there's my brother with me, Chones, which is basically MeUndies in Spanish. So if you guys want to take advantage of the offer right now, head out to MeUndies.com/Cantina. You'll get 15% off your first order. Again, that's MeUndies.com/Cantina, Cantina. All right, let's do this. Let us get to the last episode of Kenobi. I can't believe I'm even saying that. Before
it
we
went by
start,
super fast, man.
I did. I was just thinking about that, and I don't know why. I mean, 6 episodes, of course, is shorter, but there is something that just feels inherently shorter about this series than maybe, even just talking about like Mando and where we were with 6 episodes. It just felt like I don't know. Maybe it's just psychosomatic, but give me your opening thoughts. I mean, there's a lot to discuss here, obviously, but what were some of the things I guess that you were going through your mind? And I know you didn't get a chance to watch it until Wednesday night.
I had to wait all day long.
Yeah.
I fell asleep at 1:30 in the morning. It comes out at 2, folks.
Lightweight, 30 minutes.
I am a loser.
But to
answer your question, yeah, and again, we're just going to talk about this episode. We'll do more of an entire series recap here pretty soon. But you know what? It delivered on the things that I wanted it to deliver on. The fight scenes, the characters that made appearances. We got a bit of a fun one there at the end as well. We had, heart-touching. I mean, gosh, heart-wrenching moments, really.
Yeah.
And so the emotional scale of it, the pacing of this episode was so good. Again, the rumors of an hour and a half were completely false. This thing came in at, I think, 52 or 53 minutes with credits and everything. So
yeah, 42 after you remove the credits.
There you go. But did it feel like 42 minutes? No. It felt like an hour. Yeah. And I think when you were talking about, the series really flew by. We had 5 weeks of 6 episodes. But every week we talked about this where it feels like we are getting so much in that time. It doesn't feel like the half-hour episode was a half hour. It doesn't feel like a 42-minute episode was 42 minutes. They feel so much longer. And it's a testament to the writing and the pacing of the filming that we feel like, and it's so rewarding when we get that. And so this episode it answered a lot of things. It filled a lot of the quote-unquote plot holes or the gaps and all the questions that we knew the problem spots this series could present. I think it handled them exceptionally well and answered a few things that we didn't even know we wanted answered, Yeah. And so I think that from that respect, it was really cool. But I mean, man, everything about this episode was just fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. No, yeah, give us a shot.
I would agree. I mean, I enjoyed the episode immensely, beginning to end. I did tear up there. I don't know if it was because I was just tired or it is an emotional episode, especially towards the very end there. And
dude, I have cried every single time. I'm not afraid to admit it. I have cried every single time I've watched it, which has been more than a half dozen times now. And I'm tearing up now just thinking about it. Yeah. When he's talking to Leia at the end. I'm like,
yep, that's the one that got me.
Just tell her you love her.
That was the one that got me. That got me almost every time now.
Yeah.
The first time for sure, but the other part that got me the first time was the whole. I mean, Ewan McGregor acts his ass off in this one. The same thing with Reva, Ingram Moses, Leia, and Hayden Christensen.
I mean,
I think all do a phenomenal job
across the board. Yeah.
But that whole moment where there's almost a reaffirmation of sorts, right? Not directly. I don't want to go there, but this sort of reaffirmation from Anakin that, hey, you didn't do this kind of thing, and at least being enough for Kenobi to kind of let that all go, right, and get to a better place so that we see the Kenobi that we have when we get to New Hope. That was the other part that really got me emotionally. But overall, beginning to end, I thought this was really great. They focused a lot of time on the parts that were necessary and not the other parts that weren't necessarily as important, because I feel like they're saving those for later. And I'm specifically talking about Roken and Haja and that whole path, right? We've got a lot of questions about what's going to happen there now, especially going into like Rebels, and where we don't hear anything about this, or any other of the other series beyond that, where we don't have a lot of details on it.
I think one of the things I really liked and enjoyed about this as well is you were talking about where Anakin or Vader is talking to Obi-Wan. but the reflection of what Obi-Wan is saying to, to really to Anakin, that, that he's sorry, and and the other side of that, of what he said to him in Revenge of the Sith. And when you compare how those things came out and how he meant them, they're so different from one another. And they just have such a completely different, like the understanding and the recognition and the acceptance and all of that, all of the sorrow. It's not shock and surprise and everything else. It's just complete sorrow that Obi-Wan has. And it just, like you said, Ewan McGregor just did an amazing job of letting those emotions come out, to the point where the subtitles actually said, voice shaking.
Yeah.
I mean, not that it was obvious on the screen anyway, but it was so powerful, and it really did kick it up to another notch. And that scene was as intense, I think, as we always wanted it to be.
Yeah, and to your point, so, and this is something we talked about going into the series. You think about the amount of time that's lapsed for Obi-Wan Kenobi since that fatal fight on Mustafar, and the amount of regret, the sorrow. And one of the things that we talked about was that there probably wasn't a day that went by where, and again, reaffirmed with the way he said, I'm sorry, Anakin. But there probably was not a day that went by where he did not regret that encounter, and thought about, what could I have done different? What could I have said differently? And in that, to kind of your point, in that moment, it was like he'd already rehearsed this millions of times in his head, and he finally had the opportunity for it to kind of come out. And with it came all that emotion and hurt and that pain that he'd been holding in so long. And if you think about it, where he is at this point in his, where you think about where he is as a Jedi, harnessing that much suffering, pain, anger, whatever it is that he's going through, right? You think about what is it that's probably been disconnecting him from the Force. I don't think this has anything really to do with, he's just not we've talked about maybe he wasn't practicing enough. Is it atrophy? No, it's the fact that he's got all these negative feelings that he's been harboring. He lost connection with himself in that regard. And as a result, it had an impact on his ability to channel the Force. And that's exactly what we see by the end of that fight. A completely reborn Obi-Wan Kenobi in a lot of different ways, metaphorically, physically, but completely touching the light once again, and displaying some of the powers that we've not seen from him before in the past. It was almost like, flashbacks to like Clone Wars is probably the closest thing, but this is the stuff of legends, right? Quote legends, and the stuff of, even like the High Republic. So all of that kind of plays into that scene. Very, very powerful, emotional scene. Can I just real quick, the other things that stood out to me, there was the quotes of closing your eyes and the quotes of the light never fades. I think we got examples of both of those, which is great because they called them out in the episodes. I felt like it was important that they'd come back to those, and they did, at least in my opinion.
Right.
Lots of callbacks, lots and lots of callbacks to quotes and scenes and shots and choreography from a number of, mostly from, Revenge of the Sith or A New Hope. We even got something from a lot of stuff from the prequel trilogy, like the original Phantom Menace. So lots of great callbacks there. And I guess the other two things was the music. The music, for the most part, in this series, I'm going to just give it a kind of a B, and that's just my personal opinion. I know some people have loved it. I think overall it was a B for me, but we were saying, hey, how come we're not hearing these themes? And I think we rationalized that as well. This is about Obi-Wan Kenobi and Vader, so we wouldn't hear the Imperial March, or we wouldn't hear any particular motive or theme, because this is all kind of their story. But I do like the way they did it. Like, it feels smart the way they finally introduced the original score, and they did it very tactically, very strategic in terms of where they did it to emphasize things, right? So I think that whole less is more approach really worked and paid off. I'm glad they actually used the music, because I think it evokes kind of different feelings and emotions for all of us. And hats off to where they used it, because as much as I would have loved to have it in the first 5 episodes, the fact they only did it in that last episode, I actually like more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I don't know why I didn't see it coming with the Leia theme.
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah,
it snuck up on me, and it just, everything about that scene was just so perfect. But I tell you what, so before we ruin everything by going all over the place, why don't we do what we do best here? We just start walking through where we're at when we start this thing, and just kind of move on through it here.
Yeah. So the way I want to do this is, we're not going to go in the chronological order of the episode. I think it probably makes sense for us to kind of, let's get the Roken and the transport ship story kind of out of the way, since it's a smaller portion of that. and then we'll get into the Reva stuff, leading all the way up until where she's about to kill Luke, and then we'll cut over to the Vader and Kenobi fight, and then we'll kind of merge those together at the very end there for those last final moments. So
Perfect.
Let's talk about Roken. We found out in the last episode, right before it ended, hyperdrive's not working. Their ship's getting pounded in there. A lot of parallels to the opening sequence of A New Hope as it's being chased. I mean, some of those shots were almost like shot by shot. I haven't had a chance to go back and compare them, but they were almost like identical. Even just the angle that the Star Destroyer was in on certain shots there was very reminiscent of A New Hope. Some of those shots were very reminiscent for me for Empire Strikes Back when they're chasing the Millennium Falcon before they get into the asteroid field. Right. But they mentioned they're going to Tessin, which I'd never heard of.
Completely new world for us. Not been mentioned.
Okay, I hadn't a chance to look. So,
but no, definitely not in West End games.
It's not in West End games. I would be the first to tell you if it was in the West End game series. But yeah, I mean, there's all these people that are on the ship, and they're all looking at him as this hope, right? And he's telling them like, I'm going to go. I can't stay here, right? And in a lot of ways, he's right. He can't be there. It does buy them the more time, buys them more, more time to get away. And just to come back to the line, he says, "You all are the future. You are the future." Looking at Leia, saying that you're what needs to survive. And this is very similar. It's parallel to what he does in New Hope, right? He buys Luke and Leia time to get off and get away from the Death Star, although they were being tracked. But he buys them time to get off the Death Star there, and he's sacrificing himself in this way. So similar type of, again, just another parallel to A New Hope in that regard.
Right, and again, he starts telling them, you guys have been trying to help and protect and move the Jedi for the last 10 years. Let me do something to pay you back, to show our appreciation. And the question I wanted to get your thoughts on it, though, was he just saying that to kind of be a bit of a kind of martyrdom type of syndrome, or do you really feel like he really meant that he was doing this? Because, I mean, Roken challenges him a bit here too, right? He's like, you're not doing this for us. Mm-hmm. You're doing this because, really because of you and your relationship with him. It's between you two. It's basically saying it's personal, right?
Yeah.
Did you get a sense that he was being more self-serving or selfish in that way and trying to, disguise it in this, I'm trying to do it for all of you, but really he's a bit, maybe not obsessed, but I mean, clearly he's saying, when he's talking to Qui-Gon out in the Mystics of, this ends now. Either he goes or I go. It ends today. Of course it doesn't, but, but what were your takes on that scene of Obi-Wan's motivation? Was it as pure as it came across, or was it maybe not so much?
Yeah. Well, the way I would answer that is, I think from a Jedi perspective, doing an act of selfishness and doing something that's going to benefit from someone else, I don't think those are mutually exclusive, right? You can have both of them be true. And I think from his perspective, both of these were true in that regard. The other part of this that I was starting to notice, right? And I think this is I want to say it's from the High Republic, and help me, correct me if I'm wrong. We've read so many things we're listening, but from the High Republic, where they talked about, there were some characters in one of the mini books. They were talking about how the Jedi's power comes from being selfless, right? And the more that they give back, the more that they do for people in benefit of people, that brings them closer to the light. And as they get closer to the light, the more powerful they become. And in this simple gesture of putting all of their lives in safety is enough to help. I mean, he's going back to the light, right? And so in that regard, I think he wants to do this for himself because he has this relationship with Vader, and whether he wants to put an end to this or reconcile it or whatever he hopes the outcome is going to be at that moment, or the fact that he knows that it's going to buy them time. And then he may not trust Roken, right? The drive's not coming online. They don't know how much longer they have. I mean, you can only outrun a Star Destroyer in a craft like that so long. Your shields are going to get depleted eventually, right? So right. I think all of that just kind of adds up and weighs in. So for him, I think it's, I'm going to get out of here because I need to reconcile that relationship or go handle that somewhere else. Let's take this outside, if you will, right? And on top of that, these guys have to get safe because he's right. This is the future, especially with Leia on board. That was his primary objective. He had to get her safe. And if this was the best way to guarantee it, then he's going to follow through with it.
And it was like Luke in Return of the Jedi too, right? I have to try. And I think with Obi-Wan, he has to try to do something to divert Vader's attention and just bank that Vader is going to steer everything, not just his attention, but the entire Empire attention will steer to Obi-Wan because it's Obi-Wan. And so it was a bit of a gamble, right? Because I've heard some people be very critical of, well, Obi-Wan or Vader could have chased Obi-Wan down to the surface and just said, "All right, Grand Inquisitor, you take the ship and you hunt down the insurgents there rather than letting them go."
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's Vader, and he gets very singular minded here on this type of thing. And again, we hear this even all the way up until the very end, until he's put in this place. And even then, he really can't let it all go, right? So for Vader, it's even more personal than it is for Obi-Wan. And so Obi-Wan just keeps playing on that, and that this is their one realistic chance, because Roken was like, "We don't have enough time." And all of a sudden he's like, "No, we have time. Like, don't leave us. No, for real, we're okay." And Obi-Wan's like, "No, that's not what you just said 5 minutes ago." But so yeah, so I'm with you there. I think it was a lot of. It's also practically, or a very practical and pragmatic decision, that this is our best chance of getting you guys to survive. Mm-hmm. Let me hold my own against the monster.
Right.
Let me hold the monster at bay here for everyone, and I have to try.
Yeah, it's and to bring it back to A New Hope, right? It's the same thing he tells Luke, right? Your destiny lies somewhere down another path.
Yeah,
right. That's exactly he's echoing that a little bit later, but obviously with this group here, Brett just chimed in and said it was about protecting the future and facing his fear. So that, yeah, I would agree. Like that is, and you think back to like Luke Skywalker. What does he say? Was it Last Jedi or The Rise of Skywalker? I forget one of those. That the greatest thing that the Jedi can do is face their fears. That's what being a Jedi is about.
Yeah, Rise of Skywalker. Yep.
Yeah, Rise of Skywalker. Oh my goodness! And that just every time I hear that, I think of the High Republic and how much fear those guys are facing. But not to bring that in there. Okay, getting back to the Kenobi series. So I really enjoyed that he gave Haja that responsibility, because you think about it, this character is always he's a scoundrel, a con man. Right. What does he call himself? A liar as well.
Yep.
Right.
A liar and a fake Jedi. Yep.
Yeah. And you think somebody like him, I mean, Kenobi probably is able to kind of see through all that and see that deep down there is probably somebody that really does want to help. I mean, and at the end of the day, he wasn't wrong in saying, "Look, I'm still helping people out. I'm just making money on the side of it." Right. They're a little bit more poorer or whatever.
Well, it's like you said before. Does it you benefit? I benefit. What's the harm? Right.
Exactly. But entrusting him, like empowering him, right?
Yeah.
Showing that faith in him and saying, "Look, you're a good person. I know you can do this, and I trust you to do this." That is being a leader, and Kenobi doing that, I think bodes well for this character coming back. I know a lot of people have been speculating about Roken and Haja, and we've kind of tipped that off here a little earlier about whether or not they'd come back in a TV series.
We're not speculating about Tala anymore. That's for sure.
Well, I know that was the one thing that I really did not like, but the I think I'd be okay with them coming back in a TV series. I don't have anything against it, honestly.
I think Roken in particular kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I think so too. But these are definitely characters that like are for the picking in terms of like coming back in a comic book or coming back in a limited series somewhere, or even if they want to tie it into like a Rogue One without bringing them on, because I mean these are, for the most part, they're pretty high profile actors now, starting to get up there, right, in terms of what they're doing, right? Both have had some pretty big shows, movies out there. So, there's money that's going to be involved and all that. But I am interested to see that. And I would like to see, going back to Haja, his journey, getting the back, or knowing what little we do know of him, but going from something like that to becoming someone who's actually championing the path, right? High up in the rankings of that, or, and not necessarily being, of course, he's not Force sensitive or not a Jedi, but just being able to connect with Jedi because he has so much experience with them and Force sensitives and all that. A Jedi by association, an honorary Jedi, if you will, right?
Yeah, they're going to give him a free doctorate. Yeah,
yeah. What's like the 501st, right? It's like you get brought in, even though you don't dress up. You might be an honorary member,
right?
So something along those lines.
And I think with Haja, it's also sometimes, and it seems cliche, but sometimes really someone just needs to be believed in by someone.
Yeah, no,
and especially if it's someone who they admire, or this is a Jedi in particular in this case. But I mean, gosh, in our own lives, there's going to be these people that aren't necessarily a mom or a dad that we're going to look up to and they inspire us. It's going to be someone else, maybe that we don't contact, but when they have that moment of connection with you, and they look past your faults and they see who you are and who you want to be, and they put that faith in you. That can be really instrumental, and that can be a real pivotal moment and a real what do you like to call it, a watershed moment of where they make they commit to that new path and they start thinking of themselves in a very different way. Yeah. And that's the thing that Haja is still having a hard time with, right? He's still like ashamed in some ways about how someone like Obi-Wan Kenobi, of all people, this great and honorable, and at least in their eyes, and this pinnacle of a Jedi, views him, and he can't help but be self-deprecating about it. And so it's good to really have that confirmation to where he can finally get over that and have confidence in himself and start moving forward and doing something and start truly giving himself to others and being part of this this path and whatever that might actually look like. Yeah. And I think it would be cool to come back to him and see where he's at. Does he need his own series? Probably not.
Right.
But it would be really cool to see him pop up in somewhere else and see what exactly this moment has done for him and set him up to do. I think that would be fun to see.
Yeah, and two other quick examples that pop into my head. Like the primary example of somebody who's led a very tormentous life, but someone showed a little bit of kindness and completely changed their outlook and their destiny, would be somebody like Ventress.
Yeah.
Right. Think about where she's at by the end, before she dies, and the journey that she went on, and how many times people try to see the good in her. And Quinlan Voss was a big instrumental piece of that, right?
I could do a whole show on Asajj Ventress and Obi-Wan Kenobi and their relationship. We could literally talk for 2 hours about that.
So that would be one, and then we've got one in this episode at the very end, Reva.
Yeah,
someone showed her a little bit of kindness, and someone told her that she can start anew, and now she's got her whole life ahead of her. So a whole different life ahead of her. So it's a reoccurring theme in Star Wars, and it was good to see that we've got a character like Haja that potentially could be back in some form or another. Roken, now that is someone that I would now. I mean, we'd said Tala was the one that we kind of wanted to see in Rogue One, but I can definitely see Roken. Right? He said, "I'm just getting started." Which, right. I mean, you don't really make a comment like that. Again, writers don't really put that in there unless they're springboarding that character into do something else. So I think if anything, that is going to be a guaranteed. To what end, I don't know. Rogue One. Andor seems kind of like a logical choice given the timeline.
That'd be back in time, though.
Was it back in time?
Is it? Or maybe they're around. No, you're right. Sorry. I keep thinking like way too close to the Clone Wars. I'm thinking like where Mandalorian started picking up for some reason.
Oh, no, we're not that far,
yeah.
but yeah.
I mean all the flashbacks on Mandalorian.
Yeah, but something like that. We're going to have flashbacks from Andor. We're going to have flashbacks from, I don't know, maybe they give us something in the Ahsoka where we get a flashback and that picks up there and he's part of that. There's the partisans and all that. So there's plenty of opportunities for him to come back. I just don't think they would put that in there without it.
Right. But anyway, so Leia's pissed though, right? That Obi-Wan's going to do all of this stuff.
Yeah.
And
but
she
he
is
did
not
keep his
happy.
promise. He said, "I promise."
He promises a lot of things that he really can't back up. But yeah.
It was good to see that he fell through or he followed through on this promise, and the holster, which eventually became like a Lola carrying case, which I thought was kind of cool too.
Right. Yeah.
What did you? Well, we'll come back to that. I was going to say her look at the very end there with the boots and the white.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Quickly before we get into Reva on Tatooine, so there is a quick moment on there on the Star Destroyer, and you've got Vader who he's completely obsessed. Right, we can tell that he's obsessed with the hunt at this point. He's like, "That's him." Shades of that's it. That's the Rebel base from Hoth. But the Grand Inquisitor, like Rupert Friend, does an amazing job in about a span of 30 seconds by saying only a few words, but his facial expressions say everything about what's going on.
Especially when he's in the background and blurred out. You literally can see him like sucking the sides of his mouth and like.
Yep. Not a good choice. Yeah. But there were a couple things, a couple more nuanced things that happened in the scene that I really enjoyed. Like Vader hates the Inquisitors. He's always hated them. It's never been anything he's been happy with. But I did appreciate that even though the Grand Inquisitor stepped up and he challenged Vader. And he did it very boldly. He didn't look like he was scared. He didn't do it out of fear. And Vader didn't really, he didn't snap back at him, which I thought was good. So it does feel like
because Vader knows because Vader knows.
Right. He knows
But he's
what's
just
right
not able
wrong.
to make. He's not able to make any different decision though. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so I did appreciate that. But yeah, the best part is definitely as that camera's pulling away or kind of pulling off to the side, and you can see the GI's mouth like, that's not going to end well. Like he knows he's seen this before, been down this
Right.
path
Or
before.
please don't force choke me. Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see. I wanted to just go back to the chat here. SP's with us, says their whole life is in front of them except the Rogue One team. So talking about Haja and
Too soon, man. Too
Broken.
soon.
Yeah, dude, we're still not over that. Knock it off. And then Rob came in with a small thing, but I was hoping to see Vader and the TIE Fighter heading down to meet Obi-Wan.
I was really curious. So when he said, get my, prepare my ship, I was like, what? Are we going to see the X1 or, but no, it makes sense. It was a shuttle, I guess.
I know. As soon as it came out, I thought, well, I guess we're not going to, I was wanting him to ride in on the wing, like a la Rebels, right? I mean, if you're going to come in.
He's on the canopy.
Exactly. Yeah. Like Billy Badass, you might as well just get on top of that thing instead of,
That's right.
But
hey man, it's the theater about it, right?
It's the theatrics. And it is him walking down that what is it? Not a
ramp.
The ramp. I mean, you can't help but think of Revenge of the Sith and Kenobi coming down that ramp. I've not had a chance to kind of overlay those two together, or just put them side by side. But I mean, that's kind of what.
And oddly enough, it was the exact same frame and everything from Andor trailer.
Yep.
I mean, literally shot for shot. They may have just used the exact same ship for both.
Yeah.
And just replaced the people in it.
Swapped them.
Yep.
So good stuff there. I mean, I did enjoy the symbolism there of this challenge coming back full circle. Okay, so let's move over to the Reva on Tatooine stuff, because she shows up on Tatooine. She's pestering everybody, it sounds like, especially this person that's handing out water. And a couple things that struck me or caught my eye. Number one, she's got a cowl on with a hood of some sort. Right. So we know she's there undercover, which makes sense. I mean, Vader tried to kill her, didn't happen. They left her for dead. And if anybody was to find out that she was still alive, I think they would call. I mean, she's kind of kill on sight at this point. So it makes sense that she would come in there.
And she doesn't have that ego with her anymore, right? I mean, she's not standing near as tall. I mean, she's clearly hurt, but I mean, you could tell she's been knocked down a few pegs. And so while I think, she's not doing a great job of being low key though. I mean, she knocks out the water out of the foreman's hand from one of the very first episodes, right?
That poor guy.
Yeah, but I mean,
he's a jerk. Never mind. Screw him. But go on.
Oh yeah, he gets everything he deserves. He should have more. But yeah, I mean, she's not the same character at this point, and she's really, I mean, she's in rough shape both physically and spiritually at this point. She's lost and grasping at straws, and she's desperate.
Yeah, definitely hurting, and physically in other ways as well. And this is where she's asking about Owen. We had a really cool scene. I was not expecting to get kind of like a Luke Skywalker running around in town scene shot. Yeah. Very reminiscent of Anakin Skywalker in Watto's repair place, right, where he's just kind of
you can see why he likes going to Tashi Station. It reminds him of hanging out with his uncle when he was a kid.
Exactly. That's probably it. But that was kind of cool to kind of see that. The guy comes in, explains what's going on, and when he heads back over there now to talk to Beru, like we saw, this is where the actress, and I forget her name now, but she had mentioned we were going to see a lot more Beru and see a dimension of her that we had never seen. Was not expecting this, right? You think of poor old Aunt Beru, putting, I don't know, whatever it is, celery into the food processor there, and that's
working in the kitchen basically.
Yeah, right? Chopping vegetables for days on end and serving blue milk. I mean, it seems like that's all she did. But this was a side of her that I'd never thought about, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, she's almost kind of like a doomsday prepper. She's hiding rifles in the sides of the house and all kinds of other stuff. But I did enjoy that because she's the one that takes initiative, and she's like, "We got to get ready. Like we can't we have to stand up to this. We can't just I think I can't remember now. Was it Owen saying they needed to get out of there?"
Yes, I think so. And she was
like,
she came back, like, no, this is our home. We don't want to get anybody else hurt or really involved. And I think that's the right move because only bad things can happen, from there. But again, Owen is seen in action though. Mm-hmm. So Owen knows what's coming and he knows that they're outmatched. But he also knows he's not going to he's not going to be able to overcome his wife's opinion and strengthen that one, right?
Yes, he is a better husband. So,
and again, they have the advantage on their own property too. I think that's also part of it, is that if they were going to make any kind of stand, they can't run fast enough to potentially get away from an inquisitor. And Owen knows that. So for them to make a stand in their home, which I was really excited that we got a lot more of the homestead than we've ever really had in any other capacity, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it was really cool to be able to see the different aspects of the homestead from different perspectives and different views. Some of the same areas we've been in since 1977, but I thought that was a lot of fun too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely seeing literally different dimensions of that house that we had never seen before. Their final stand, I think, was significant. I mean, it was convenient that they waited till night. That gave them the sense that, the cover of darkness, which was helpful.
I mean, they do live in the middle of the desert. So, I mean,
true. It does take a while to get out there.
Well, and it does make sense to do it at night when there's no light.
All right. Because you can see them come from a mile away.
Right.
But to your point earlier, though, right, they took advantage of, being in their homestead and using it. I mean, they're kicking over plants and whatever else, hiding in cracks and nooks and all that to kind of take Reva by surprise.
Right.
And we don't get it's very similar to like a Kylo Ren after he's injured.
Yeah.
She's there. Yes, she's a Jedi. Yes, she's trained, or Jedi. She's a Sith Inquisitor. She's been trained. However, she's hurting. And I think this was really impacting her. Even though you would think she'd be able to channel that pain and make herself stronger, she's not a Sith. She's an Inquisitor, right? Vader only trained them so far.
Well, and again, while that may have kept her alive when the kid, it keeping her alive to an extent now, but she's faltering too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, her will was already starting to weaken when she was talking to Obi-Wan in the previous episode, but now she's very much a cracked and splintered, person. That's why I'm use the word spiritual very specifically, because I think that's exactly what it is. She's lost now. She knows what she thinks she wants to do, but she knows that she doesn't know if she can actually do this. She doesn't know if she can actually go through with it and follow through.
Yeah.
But it's something that she feels like she has to do to overcome. This was the Anakin in Revenge of the Sith, right? I'm powerless to do anything else except take this path. Even though he was splintered too, trying to make that decision. But he had something much more certain in his mind that he was trying to avoid, whereas what was in front of Reva was a lot less certain and is more personal and individual to her about where she thinks she's going.
Yeah.
So she could still come back from that cliff where Anakin was really kind of predisposed in the situation he was in to go ahead and take a step off.
And I think also I think Reva, kind of along that same line of things are starting to kind of unwind for her or come undone for her, is she gets there. And I think she was fully expecting these guys just to roll over, right? Like they were just going to roll over, let her do whatever she needed to do, kill the kid, kill them, whatever. And they didn't. I mean, they doubled down. They took a stance. She probably, and that had to be, I mean, that had to really mess with her mind, because even she says that line, you really love the boy like he's your own, right? He says he is my own. And she's thinking, these guys are standing up for this kid. This is not how it was supposed to go. And I think that set that doubt, right? Like to your point, was starting to really kind of set in. And to that end, it's probably undoing everything she's using now and channeling the hatred and whatever dark side she's got left in her to stay alive. That probably did weaken her a lot, right? So,
well, and you said it when we talked about Vader in Return of the Jedi after Luke defeats him and he's starting to not be able to sustain himself and due to his injuries, but also because he's lost that ability to focus on that hate and do it because he's so conflicted internally. And I think it's a very similar case right here.
Yeah, no.
And it gets worse. To your point, I think it gets worse as she starts talking to Owen. Like, she's surprised, like, you actually care about this kid. And I think she's trying to work herself up to say, that's going to make it all the sweeter. That's going to make it all the better when I actually follow through and do this, this wicked thing. And it will finally put me over that hump. But all it does is just make her continue to question herself as she goes through it.
We had another cameo of that. I don't even know what it is. That bar that he was using that gets sliced in half by Reva.
Yeah,
that's the
I forgot what
one.
they call the Mandalorian. Yeah,
it was. Well, it was so.
Then A New Hope in the trash compactor. Yeah,
trash compactor. Book of Boba Fett. This episode, this series.
Oh, Book of Boba Fett. Sorry, yeah, not Mandalorian.
No, it does. No, hold on.
Okay,
we are still the only show that I'm aware of that has pointed out that it was in the Mandalorian. It was in season 1. when Mando is going in to rescue baby Grogu, when he's
Oh,
made
that's
that
right.
decision, it's leaning in one of the alleyways. It's just kind of leaning up against something.
That's right. Yeah.
So this is now the 4th cameo appearance of that metal pole. So I don't know.
And
Maybe
again, we got another backstory here that we didn't expect to get. We understand why Owen has a limp.
oh yeah, that's right. Because he falls off that little catwalk thing.
Yeah, she pushes him over or foreshot or whatever it was, however he got knocked off, and banged his knees on the thing. And if you remember back to A New Hope, when he's out there with the Jawas, I mean, he's got a little hitch in his giddy up, is like what we like to say down here, right? And clearly, this is where it happened from. So the backstory we never knew we needed, we now have. But what I like about that one, though, it's so subtle and it's something so Easter eggish of sorts that it's absolutely perfect. Where some of the stuff that maybe got more criticism with Solo was a bit more on the nose and expected, because Han Solo is such a front and center character, but Owen hasn't been explored near as deeply, right?
Right.
And so I think this type of thing makes that type of recognition really, really fun to mention to someone, and they're like, holy crap, you're right.
Yep. And we also see that, I'm laughing too, because yes, Jonesy has said hitch in his giddy up. So there you go.
That's right.
So I think where was I going with that? Hitch in the giddy up now got me distracted here.
You're welcome.
So yeah. But no, you're right. So, and later on, we see him, he's still limping towards the very end of this episode. So that injury stays with him for a long time, which I thought was great. There's a moment in there where he asked, what do you want? Because and I think this is the question, and it's already coming up in the chat here, so we'll probably talk about it here. But he says, what do you want? She says, justice.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, we don't know for sure. Like, I mean, if we went, I'm sure the actors are going to come out here the writers will come out very soon and probably give us the motivation behind Reva. I've seen a lot of different takes in terms of what Reva was doing, why she wanted to go after Luke Skywalker rather than, because all she sees is that message, right, from Bail Organa. She puts 2 and 2 together. She associates, and this is how I interpret it. She associates that Bail Organa and Kenobi and this boy and Owen are all kind of, related in some way, right? She can't go after Vader at this point. She's lost that power. She lost that access to him. So that's out. She doesn't have a way to get to Kenobi because Kenobi's obviously fighting out there. She wants justice. She wants revenge is really what this to me boils down to. She says it's justice. To me, it feels more like revenge. And she's grasping now at this point. Like, she's become so desperate about hurting someone, anyone that she can find, that she is going to, that she ends up picking this trail of Luke Skywalker and going to Owen and killing this boy because he has some significance of some sort. I don't believe that she knows he's Luke Skywalker. Like, he is like the brother of Leia. There's nothing in the. I mean,
or the son of Anakin,
right now. I'm not saying that can't be true. We don't know. We didn't even know. I mean, Reva was one of the few people that knows that Anakin became,
right.
Darth Vader. I don't know. Maybe she somehow found out later through the grapevine that there was a Padme. I don't know. Whatever. It's not important. All I'm saying is I don't know that that's the case. I didn't pick up that. I think it's truly just strictly her wanting to get revenge on somebody, anyone, anything, and knowing that this is a way that she could hurt somebody, and going out there and attacking Luke Skywalker.
Well, again, it reminds me of Kylo Ren in a lot of ways too, right? You have to kill the past to instead of letting go of it, you feel like you have to kill the past to get beyond it. And in effect, she finds this out immediately when she goes and actually tries to do the killing blow. Was you basically have to kill yourself in order to, and Anakin or Vader says the exact same thing, right? It's this theme that you have to kill yourself in order to become the monster you feel like you should be. Mm-hmm. And again, you can start that path with a lot of great intentions. And Reva maybe feels that this is the last thing she has to do to finally be free and prove herself. Maybe she's trying to, the justice she's looking for is what she feels was now taken from her, first by Anakin with the Jedi Order family, and then next by Kenobi or Vader with her station in the Empire and her power and where she thought she was headed, and for taking her life away. I mean, there's just so many different ways you can interpret it. And so I'm looking forward to when we get that additional context from I think probably writers or Deborah Chow in particular where that would come from, about what that true motivation behind it was, or maybe Moses Ingram has some sort of sharing that she can do on that one of how if they had that kind of discussion. But
Yeah.
I mean, but it was a theme in this one where you've got to kill the past, kill yourself in order to, make that next transcendence to your next version of yourself, right? And that new escalation, which is completely ridiculous sometimes, right?
Yeah. So, and again, to clarify, like the idea of her knowing that Luke Skywalker is the son of Anakin Skywalker, or just Luke, I would say, is the son of Anakin Skywalker. Maybe she just the last names alone. Where I don't know. We talked about that many times before. I think that's intriguing. Like I wouldn't mind knowing more about that if that turns out to be the case. But I think it's also pretty, it's probably very easy to say that it's just simply revenge, and it is getting back at him in that regard, because that's all she really had at that point.
And again, taking the life of someone that's close to Obi-Wan, who is at fault too, for all of his transgressions, for not coming back and helping, as well as whatever all this is going on now. But I'm with you. I don't think there's no reason to make a connection between Anakin Skywalker and Leia or Luke at this point. And I think even for what Reva knows of Anakin and Vader, even Vader doesn't know. So I think it's a huge leap for her to take that broken communication from Bail Organa, knowing that he wasn't exactly seeking out or keeping these from. I mean, Bail was talking about keeping him from the children. So there is a small connection there. But again, she could just be viewing this as a Force-sensitive kid more so than anything else.
Yeah.
But again, is she able to make that connection to Anakin? It seems possible, but seems very, very unlikely at this point, just because there's not a lot of information. But then again, she's not thinking clearly. She's got very, very focused idea on her mind of what she needs to go do. So that she could be making all sorts of conclusions, but she never really admits to it. I was expecting if there was something, it would have been like that Maul Kenobi moment at the end of Rebels, where something like that would have come out. But it didn't. And it was more about, where she was going next, and Obi-Wan helping her understand who she truly was with the decisions that she ended up making.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll come back to this in a little bit, because when we get to there are some lines that kind of, add additional context to kind of what's going on in her head. Hopefully, I think as well.
Stephanie mentioned it would be amazing to get an Obi-Wan novelization. We'll talk about that towards the end of the show, actually.
Okay. That would be kind of cool.
We kind of already had one, but we're going to talk about that at the end of the show.
Another one, yeah.
Yep.
Current Crown says, isn't it interesting that Reva walks away free knowing Darth Vader is Anakin and jeopardizes Luke's safety in the future? Feels like there's going to be a spinoff or comic. Yeah, I would agree. There's probably going to be something.
There's potential in this character, and I don't care what the response has been to it from the fans, but I think there is promise in this character, and there's potential with the character of where they want to take Reva, and I'm interested to see what those stories might be.
Yep.
Whether it's going to be in the past or in the future.
Yeah. Sorry, I was going to say it's in the show notes now for the Patreon episode that we're doing on Tuesday for Reva. Yep. So we'll get into some speculation and talk about what we would like to see from her character going forward. Rob says maybe she thinks she's getting back at Obi-Wan, not Vader. That's kind of, I think, what we were alluding to here. Gary Smith says, sacrifice yourself for the power, a master with power, an apprentice to covet it. This is speaking to what you were talking about earlier, where that next level up, and that is the way of the Sith. I mean, and there are things in here too. Again, maybe on that character dissection, because I found myself on the defensive pretty much all the last 2 days with Reva, because I posted this whole thing on Twitter about why, what her motives are and what she was doing, trying to explain.
So you did it to yourself.
I did it to myself, really.
Okay, fair enough.
But I found myself on the defensive, and I found myself coming back to that saying that a lot of what we're seeing here isn't atypical for dark side users. It's specific to very, very specific to the Sith and the rule of two. But if they're being trained by Vader, and if you look at the hierarchy of the Grand Inquisitor, or the Inquisitors themselves, it's mirrored after this whole rule of two, right? We see this with the brother, and they're always trying to get up in the ranks, and they want to be the number one, that kind of thing. They want to become the Grand Inquisitor because they know there's more power that can be unlocked. There's more responsibility, more power, all that goes with it. And so in that regard, I think there are a lot of the behaviors that we're seeing from the Inquisitors in this series, the Inquisitors in the video game, and some of the motive behind some of the characters, specifically like Reva, is all kind of trickling down because they're learning from a Vader who's learning from the worst person in the entire galaxy, in the entire universe, Papa Palpatine. So,
Oh man, Uncle Palpy, he's gonna get Dad of the Year award, I think.
oh, he really came in. He
Especially
came
at the end of this one. Yeah,
Oh
man.
yeah, what a
I
guy!
got a lot to say about that one too.
He's such a loving father. I just okay, where were we? I don't even know where we were.
So
anymore.
yeah, so we were basically, I think we're more or less wrapped up. Well, no, we didn't talk about Baru getting the jump on
Oh yeah,
on
the
Reva
sucker
there.
punch.
Yeah, sucker punched her and gave Luke some time to escape. And I know some people have given some crap about, well, why didn't Reva catch up to? Well, Reva's really hurt and doesn't know where they're going, and Luke has a plan of where he's supposed to run.
Well,
but yeah, it was cool seeing Reva or kind of Baru get a moment to shine there.
And I'll say this too about that. If you've and my brother can attest to this, we grew up at one point for a few years out in the wilderness, really like middle of nowhere, down in like Southwest Texas. And if you try to chase me back there where I was living, there's no way. And granted, I know it's the desert, and you can only go so long but eventually you get to the caverns and stuff. You're going to be able to outrun somebody like that if they're not familiar with the terrain. And so I would chalk some of that up to there. But I think what a lot of people have really been kind of focusing on here, and maybe not for the anything positive, but they were going on about how Luke has now seen, the Sith. And if you go back and watch this, and I've carefully done it, maybe I missed something, but there isn't a moment in here where he ever sees a lightsaber, like a red lightsaber.
No, I thought the exact same thing. Luke has no idea who's actually chasing him,
right,
or what she is.
All she tells him, I think Amber Rue tells him that she mentions that the Sand People are coming, and I think that's all he knows.
Owen
right?
does, yeah, right.
Or it's Owen, right? And so he's running from something, but he doesn't know what it is, and I think that's crucial because I think people would be. I would agree if for whatever reason they broke that canonically, I think that would be kind of a mess that they've got to clean up, because now you've got a Luke Skywalker who knows about lightsabers and the Force and all that, and that kind of pulls away and diminishes his teachings from Kenobi and all that. I think it's perfectly valid that Leia knows all about that. That makes complete sense for me, especially growing up with her dad being somebody that's close.
Yeah, with the Organas who knew the Jedi, right?
Right. Yeah. So that makes sense. But they were very careful. And if you go back and watch these shots, like when Reva comes in, at that moment that she comes in, her lightsaber's not ignited, and he pops out. His head goes up. So he doesn't even have a chance to look back. Plus, again, maybe the part of this is where I was kind of talking about the hood. The convenience of this is, she's got this hood on that she's wearing for whatever reason outdoors, even when she's chasing him out there. She's got a hood on, so he never really gets a good look at her face as well. So, yeah, he doesn't. They did a really good job of crafting that and shooting that so that Luke never has an opportunity to see who's chasing him.
Right. Yeah. No, it was it was important that he was knocked out, and I mean, he doesn't know what knocked him down the cliff either, right? He took a bad step or something. He has no clue, and likely won't remember what it is either. And so, again, he never saw the lightsaber. He didn't have to experience all that fear. He's going to wake up at home, and they're just going to have, you took quite the tumble there, but everything's fine.
Yep. They get out to, I don't know. My headcanon says they're out at Beggar's Canyon. That feels like it's too far away, though. Like,
I think that was pretty far away, but you're not the only one who's thought that. Yeah.
Okay. It's just a canyon of some sort, right? But there's plenty of these on Tatooine. But wherever they are, like you said, she uses the Force to kind of make him fall. He comes tumbling down and knocks himself out. Now, we're going to flip over here in just a little bit, but at that moment, this is where Kenobi's worst fears have suddenly manifested. And he's so in touch with the Force. You think about how far away he is at this point. He's so in touch with what's going on. He's almost, to me, I was interpreting this as he was visually seeing what was happening.
Yeah.
It wasn't just like a tremor in the Force. It wasn't a light premonition of sorts. I think he actually was able to kind of see Luke tumbling down and then feeling that Luke had lost consciousness. And that scared the crap out of him. Of course, he jumps into hyperspace at that point.
Right.
And by the way, time is not absolute when it comes to Star Wars. Okay, we've already discussed this ad nauseum about how time works in Star Wars, and it just doesn't. Okay, It doesn't. So get over it. It's always been that way. It's going to continue to always be that way. You're focusing on the wrong things. But yeah, so the flashbacks that are kind of going through Luke's head when all that's going on, and then when Luke is there on the ground, and she walks up, and she's finally ready to kind of take that strike. We get to see her starting. She sees herself in that child, and she sees herself in that child. But I think she also sees herself as Anakin at that point.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah, right? That's exactly what I was thinking. She sees. It's not that she so much sees herself. She feels like she is now in the place of Anakin / Vader.
Yep.
And that boy is that kid, that young girl who got slaughtered at, in the temple. And I mean, clearly her, and again, this is one of these things you have to be willing to kill yourself, as brutal as that sounds, in order to go down this path. And again, I thought it was very, I mean, the framing of the shots, the way that her emotions mirrored Anakin's and in the temple. And it was interesting seeing a bit of Anakin's hesitation too, potentially, on his face there before he impaled her.
I caught that.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting. But again, he firmed up and he made the decision, whereas she freezes up and makes a completely different choice. But no, I thought the parallels there were really nice, and that she was, and again, she follows it up with that conversation with Obi-Wan afterwards of, am I him now? And again, everything felt like she was now him in that moment.
Yeah. Well, and even prior to this, I think in the last episode, we were talking about the parallels between Reva's character and Anakin. And there are more, and we'll get into those again on the Patreon episode, but definitely a lot going on there that's very similar, which was intentional. You mentioned the hood. I know it's a small thing, but they're both hooded. And I think, again, that part of, I thought it was weird when she went out into the desert after she was chased. She didn't have the hood on when she was fighting Owen and all that. And then she comes out to chase Luke, and she's got the hood back on. I thought that's kind of odd that she would put her hood on. Maybe it's part of the veil of secrecy kind of thing, trying to stay hidden. But I think obviously symbolically it makes sense now, especially at the very end there with that whole lightsaber scene. So it's all good. Okay, so we'll pause there, and now let's get over to what was deemed the fight of the century. Yeah. So just quickly on the fight itself, I mean, I don't want you to rank them, although I think it's always fun to do that stuff. But we don't, it's not really what we do. Go listen to Coffee with Kenobi. They do a lot of fun ranking stuff there. But as far as rankings go, I know it's still early, but what's does this bubble up to the top for you in terms of fights? I mean, I was asked this, by the way. I was on recently on Triad of the Force. They asked me what my favorite fight scene was, and we were talking about a couple different ones. But what for you? Where did this fight scene kind of rank in terms of lightsaber fight scenes?
And you and I might have some similarities here, but for me, what makes a really good lightsaber fight, because one of my favorites is Luke in Return of the Jedi against Vader, and it's not the crazy abilities or the wildness of it. It's the emotion and the drama that's all a part of it, right? And this one really does rank. I don't like to do rankings either, but this one is definitely towards the top for me because it just had a little of everything. Vader finally got the high ground, right? I mean, and then what did he do with it? He buries him, and you have to confront your fears and all the things that go with it, as well as the flashbacks and the mirroring of what we had seen previously in the series, what we've seen in other media shows, movies, and whatever, and the dialogue. And so it was really this package deal that makes this entire fight just something that was, in its totality, one of, I think, the best lightsaber battles that we've had in all of Star Wars, if not the best. And again, then we get to see Obi-Wan do something, a Jedi we've not really seen someone do like this. And to finally, I mean, it's very rare that we see a Jedi come to this moment without turning to rage, to where they're able to do things that surprise you and that you wouldn't expect them to do.
Right.
And I think this is one of those moments we've seen a bit in High Republic, but at least on screen, this is probably one of the few times I can think of that we've had this kind of moment where Obi-Wan just arms spread and you just feel him letting himself go and just barraging Vader, with rocks. And so again, when you just kind of take all those pieces together, it just had a little of everything. But it's the emotion behind it that I think that matters the most. Yep. And that creates the most drama, and that makes it memorable. And that's that feeling you get. You're like, God, that was good. What about you? How's it rank for you? And why?
Well, so Matt chimed in just quickly on YouTube, said, I will do what I must. Great podcast. Thanks, guys. Yeah, that line got me. And we'll talk about that here as more just a little bit.
Well, and the way he says it's so different than Revenge of the Sith too. Again, the parallels, they're not parallels so much, they're
Yeah.
diverging points, right?
Yep.
And it's so cool to see, kind of watch those side by side. And there's
Yeah,
some videos out on YouTube where they are doing some of that. So, go look at those and come back and tell us what you guys think and join us over on Discord.
Eugene Birds with us says combat rolls, but no midair flips. True, I didn't see any midair flips.
A lot of on the ground
rolling,
flips. Yeah, a lot of rolls.
mostly from Kenobi.
That makes sense because he's not made of metal. Yeah.
Ken says it was awesome, the best hands down. And I would say, man, this one's really difficult because we've had a lot of great fights
Really
in Star Wars, and I know people. Of course, we're going to go to the movies first, and you've got the Phantom Menace in there. You've got Empire Strikes Back, which I think is still one of the cooler ones.
Again, so much drama. Yeah.
So much drama that kind of elevates that lightsaber fight. We've got obviously Revenge of the Sith. That I think for a lot of people that is still kind of like the pinnacle, because of just how long it is and the amount of theatrics that go into that fight.
Sure.
I think it turns off people though too, because of the theatrics. It looks kind of choreographed, but that's okay. It's fine. I enjoy it. But I think some of the ones that don't get talked about enough, or one of the more recent ones, honestly, was the Darth Maul and Ahsoka Tano fight that we saw, where we had Ray Parker come in and Ray Parker, I'm thinking of Ghostbusters, but Ray Parks come in and do actually the choreography, and they did some mocap with him.
Right.
That fight was really great, very dramatic again when that was going on. But for
Palpatine versus the brothers. Maul and
that was really cool.
Again, it wasn't necessarily the fighting, which was really cool.
Yeah.
It was everything about the scene that was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, this was that particular fight scene between the Emperor or I should say, Lord Sidious and the brother, what's his name, Maul and Savage Press.
Yeah.
That fight it was almost like Reva and Invader. Like he's just toying with them the entire time.
So great.
Yeah, but it goes on for so long, and there's some really good choreography that they threw in that. Some of the best I think that they've done in Clone Wars. So so to kind of answer your question, I still have, for me, visually, I think the Last Jedi fight is probably still the best. The way it was choreographed, the visual effects. I mean, Ryan Johnson is a master at doing that type of, the aesthetic of it all was beginning to end. But for me, I think you're right. For the emotion that went into this one, and knowing what the stakes were, having the context now that we have, the benefit of these 5 episodes and kind of leading up into all of that, I think this does kind of push it up for me at the very top. At least that's how I feel now, less than 48 hours. But
Sure,
I really enjoyed. I did enjoy it. There
Yeah, and Last Jedi fight's really great because, again, is that moment where she catches the lightsaber and it's, oh my gosh, it's that suspense and that the building of what is actually going to happen here, and then it gets going, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. So, but yeah, this one, because of all the things that we just said, it's strictly choreography. It's probably not like my favorite, but we had so many great moments in here, and not to bring in the Old Republic, but if you go back and watch, there's what is it, the Satele Shan and Darth Malgus fight. There's one of the cinematics.
God,
where she's
yes.
pelting him with rocks.
Yeah. Or she catches his lightsaber with her hand.
Yeah. She does all that stuff because she's awesome.
Don't blow that off, man. That was one of the amazing.
No, it is. It's one of the most amazing things ever. And that was prior to people stopping lightsabers.
That wasn't a thing yet.
Yeah, not yet. But now it seems to be a thing. But there's the moment there where she does that, and it's actually one of the abilities. I think it's one of the counselors, the class. You can all these rocks come out of it nowhere, and they just start pelting whoever you're attacking with tons of rocks. So cool. I couldn't help but think about all of that. But seeing this "Are You Not Entertained" moment, which is I have as my background here, where he's got his hands up in the air, like, what was his name?
Yeah.
What was the guy from Gladiator? That's what I was thinking of. Are you not entertained? Maximus, Aurelius, whatever his name's. But yeah, moments like this, it's just stuff that we have never had a chance to kind of see. And going back to what you said earlier, with the High Republic, we've got Jedi there doing some really amazing things. And a lot of people have questioned why is that? Well, it goes back to what Yoda said in Empire Strikes Back. When Luke asked him, is the dark side more powerful? And he says, no, it's not. It's quicker, stronger, more seductive, right? Or whatever it is. We're seeing that here. We're seeing Kenobi so in touch with the light. And I'll kind of give you my thoughts on as to why he's as powerful as he is in this moment. Because I don't think he's ever been at this level. I mean, you can disagree cite examples in Clone Wars probably where he probably was doing some pretty amazing things. But what he was doing in this fight against a Vader who's probably arguably at his prime, at least as he is as Darth Vader, not necessarily Anakin Skywalker, at the end of at Revenge of the Sith before he becomes Darth Vader, I think he's doing some amazing things here that he wouldn't have been able to do otherwise.
Right. And we see Vader. I mean, Vader is doing some stuff too, right? I mean, his taking his hand and slamming on the ground and using the Force to create basically an earthquake and take the ground away from Obi-Wan is incredible. So it's what is it going to take to beat someone like that? It really does take something special. And again, it wasn't that what he was doing was all that incredible, but it was everything that led up to that moment and seeing Obi-Wan, who typically we see him use the Force, but he's usually using his lightsaber in combat.
Yeah.
And so for him to really start putting the lightsaber away of sorts until it kind of comes to the finishing moves, but to really turn the tide was incredible, to use the Force and finally embrace it fully and to conjure up all of these abilities that, again, nothing special in the sense of telekinesis, but just the situation where he's come from and where he's gone to at this point that's what makes it incredible.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it like Obi-Wan, and Anakin said it himself, Obi-Wan is as wise as Master Yoda and as powerful as Mace Windu. And until this moment, really weren't seeing it for the most part, right? I mean, We've seen some great abilities from Obi-Wan. He's skilled, but until this moment, I think, and in this scene, we finally see what Anakin saw in Obi-Wan, which is a bit of irony too.
Yeah, no, that for sure.
He probably didn't want to see all that from Obi-Wan.
Quickly to the comments on the question about favorite duels. Tim Calvert says Duel of Fate's number one for me. Oh man, that music. When that music gets going, it's hard to not get pumped up. First stream tonight, making me Patreon after this. Oh, thanks, Current Crown. Appreciate that.
So, that's exciting.
Best live action, says Gary Smith. Maul and Ahsoka in the last season of Clone Wars, or Sidious versus Maul and Savage. Oppress are tied for best with me.
Oh, okay. He's saying that this one's the best in live action.
Yeah.
And then the others are tied. Okay, got
and
it.
The other ones are tied, yep.
Got it. Yeah.
Live action. That's a good point. We should probably separate those. Alex says Finn versus Kylo was great, short, and aggressive. To the point, yeah. Those were good, though. Visually, those are, again, some other good ones.
Visually, that was some of the most beautiful fights we had, yeah.
Hey, Rob, we'll come back to the volume here in a little bit. He commented on that. Jorge's with us again tonight. Cheers, everyone. Love the episode, even more so after the second watch. Wait till you get to viewing 6. That's when it gets really
That's right.
good.
You really start to pick up all the things you never thought you'd notice.
Impressive. Most impressive. There you go.
Well done, man.
I'm never going to be able to do that again. I'm just because I'm sick. Rob says stopping lightsabers with your gut should not be a thing, though. Yeah, well, I guess if you're angry enough, but
they're not doing a great job of doing that either. I mean, they're taking it all the way through.
Yeah. Ken says the rocks were incredible, and then we get love seeing Vader with these powers in live action that we've always seen in comics a little. Yeah, that's
a great point.
We've had some examples of that in the comic books, but again, getting this on the big screen is awesome.
This really, actually, him saying, or Current Crown saying this, this really reminded me of like a comic fight.
Yep.
I didn't put that together. That's pretty neat. Yeah, I like that. Comics are amazing.
All right, well, let's get to the fight. Yeah, comic books are, and they're very expensive. Let's get to the fights. So we talked about this. You've got Vader. What do you think about the planet? Like aesthetically, I'd love the fact that the planet was kind of washed out in or moon or whatever it was. I couldn't really tell.
They call it a desolate moon, I think is all they described it as.
Okay. So I enjoyed that it had this kind of like a greenish gray palette that was really washed out. And the only thing you could really see were those spires,
the
or whatever
rocks
they
and
were.
Stuff.
Yeah. But that contrasted with the red and blue lightsabers, I think worked really well.
Yep. And this is what worked. Yeah, and this is what worked well in the first confrontation with Obi-Wan and Vader too, right? Closer quarters, the reflections really meant a lot as you got into the tighter spaces and the bottlenecks, right? And this one, there were clearings, but again, they did this really cool establishing shot where you're really far away as we're coming back to the scene from one of the Reva scenes, and we're coming in close to them when they're really far away, and just seeing the lightsaber, the battle going on from a distance was just kind of unique and cool, I thought too. And
yeah,
But I really like this. I mean, and again, there were when they would miss and Vader would hit part of the spire or part of the rock outcrop. You get sparks and you get more debris. They had objects to throw at one another. So I thought the landscape was really a great component to this fight. And what was really cool is seeing both of them interact with it in different ways, and to use it to their advantage and to see it used against them and in a disadvantaged way for them too. So I thought it was really fun. I really like how they positioned when they were out on the plain at first, and then they quickly descend into this kind of guerrilla warfare type of environment.
Mm-hmm. There's the line that he says, Vader says, "Have you come to destroy me, Obi-Wan?" And to me, that was very reminiscent of the "Did you come back to save me or forgive me?" that Kylo says to Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. The continuation of that line is "to save my soul." Same similar thing there that's happening. And then of course we get the "I will do what I must," which we've already spoken about. That's obviously echoed in Revenge of the Sith.
Right.
And then the freak out moment for everybody was him doing the pose. So that's now the fourth time that he's done the pose. He's done it in Clone Wars. He's done it in Rebels. He did it in Attack of the Clones, and now here in this series. But how did you feel? I mean, this is one of the things we were saying he was going to have to do. Like, it felt like this was a staple of this series, that he was going to have to do this pose, and we at least got it.
Right. I mean, it was good enough to make us the title card, partially because I couldn't get the other one to work right. But this was a great fallback one. But, we had to see it, right? And it's his style. And I think that he didn't hesitate going into it. Was Obi-Wan finally recognizing and accepting that this is inevitable. There's no choice, and he needs to follow through with this, and this is going to happen whether he likes it or not. And so I thought that was really nice. And there's a Jorge made a comment in the chat, he said it looks a bit like Obadiah. It kind of does, but I don't think it is. There's some really key differences with Obadiah, and Obadiah is the planet where the Pikes live.
Yeah, I do.
Edu, I think is what that one is. Yeah,
Edu. That was isn't the High Republic? No, I'm thinking of Irem.
No,
I'm thinking of Irem.
Yeah, I forgot what Edu is, but anywho, but yeah, back to the fight though I like seeing it again. It was cool seeing again. It was some of the parallels that we saw from the Revenge of the Sith fight, from the flashback in this episode, in this series fight, as well as a couple little kind of cool things that were you didn't expect to see from Obi-Wan. So
yeah, we had so Vader. No, we've been talking about this so far in the series, and I just want to continue it on, just to kind of see it through here. But he starts the fight with one hand again. Right. Vader does. I think that's important to note, because he will go to a two-handed kind of attack
pretty quickly.
Well, he does in this one, yeah. But it's a very different kind of fight than the last one, of course. I think Kenobi at this point he's obviously reconnected with the Force in a lot of different ways. He's still not completely charged, which is where we're going to get that whole, Goken moment or whatever Dragon Ball Z moment with the rocks here later on. I think that's when he's become fully, charged with the Force, if you will. But he does start with a one-handed attack, and and he's hacking and slashing at Kenobi. Kenobi's doing his best he's using two hands to fight.
Kenobi's been a bit more aggressive on this fight than I think we've seen him in other fights though too.
Yeah, I think so too. And he's moving around a lot more too. And I there's a part of me that thinks that, wondering if he was trying to get him back into the rock so he's got more cover that he can use to his advantage, but then also thinking that, he doesn't know. I mean, the last he left Vader, he had like no legs, no arms, couldn't breathe. He's got all this stuff on him. So maybe it is, hey, I'll try to wear him out, right, by keeping up the pace and jumping around the entire time. But
I think some of it was also going, whereas in the first confrontation, Vader would just pick him up and throw him basically, right? And in this time, when we see where Vader has that same opportunity and he does take him, but Obi-Wan rolls with it, literally. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he goes into the roll and he's ready and ready to, to defend and to strike back and regain his, positioning. So again, very different mindset coming into this one too.
Yeah. And as we'll talk about here in just a minute, these roles are going to reverse. Like, Vader is very, very, very much on the aggressive here. Again, one-handed. Kenobi's got two hands of his lightsaber, very defensive in terms of what he's doing. Go back to that shot that you were talking about. I really did love that too, where they're kind of zooming in. You can kind of see the scale of the fight that's happening. I thought that was great. There's that first moment in there where Kenobi is using the spires. He's trying to knock one over on him.
Yeah, he's using the Force, trying to pull it over, and you could just see Vader's like, no.
Right.
I mean, he's real casual about it. But yeah, the comment was great, though, right? I see your strength is returned.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, your weakness still remains, though.
Yeah, but the weakness remains.
Yeah.
I loved all of the voicing that they did. I thought they did a really good job with that whole re-speech stuff.
Yeah.
For this one. But I think this is so. Again, what he's speaking to is that, yeah, of course, Kenobi's got the power back with him. And it's such a difference because if you look at the way Kenobi's using the Force, everything is in sight, right? He's using things he can see because that's where his level's at. Later on, when we get to the rock moment, he's not even looking. Like, he's unconsciously lifting all these rocks and pelting them with them. And this just shows you the big difference that happens there.
Funny. And again, I think sorry to jump ahead if we're doing this, but yeah, I think that's the other aspect of this, that his training when he was a Padawan was connecting with the living Force, staying mindful, staying in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Don't lose sight of the living Force by getting in your own way, by thinking too far ahead or being distracted. And so I think we finally, in this episode, a couple of different times, see Obi-Wan finally connecting with the living Force in a way that he's potentially never connected to it.
Yeah. No, for sure. Vader punches the crap out of him at one point in the fight, which is good.
Very, very reminiscent of Phantom Menace, right? How Qui-Gon dies. Remember when Maul kind of hits him with the saber and then twirls around and does a nice little impaling. A bit of a similarity there.
Yep. And then he says he follows up but the weakness still remains with, and that is why you will always lose. And at that moment, he creates that chasm, like you said, the ground literally falls out from underneath him.
That was incredible.
We got of course, the obligatory high ground shot that we were kind of expecting. I'm glad they didn't say anything about the high ground. I don't know why people wanted that. It's like,
now I have the higher ground.
No thanks. Like, I mean, there's certain things that we want to see, but we don't need to have everything like exactly. We all get it.
Right. They don't need to. And actually, if you think about this fight, they really don't say a whole lot throughout the whole thing. And I think it makes it better because they don't. There's nothing that really needs to be said at this point. A little bit of taunting, a little bit of this or that, but until there's an actual clear winner, there's nothing to be said. We just got to throw down. We just got to do the thing.
As those rocks, as he starts pelting him with the rocks and covering him up, I was really wondering, like, how's he going to get out of this? Like, this is not at all what I thought was going to happen, which is a credit to the writers. I wasn't expecting that. But and then he finishes that. Yeah, he says, you'll always lose. And then I guess when he walks away, the last line he says after burying him with all these rocks is, did you think you could truly defeat me? And again, yeah. So speaking about that, right? So this goes back to that whole flashback moment that we had in the series where his confidence, right, his aggressiveness got the better of him. He probably should have stepped on the robes, right?
Yeah.
As he did in The New Hope, because here Kenobi is obviously survives from this moment, but him thinking that, okay, there's no way he could have survived. I think when we cut back to it, again, we're kind of piecing all this together because it didn't happen this way. But when we come back to it and we realize that Kenobi's not dead, he's somehow manifested the Force and he's able to kind of keep himself from being buried this entire time. I think it was really great. But if you look at him, and this is where I think that first quote came in about his eyes being closed. He was actually had his eyes closed the entire time. And he's thinking about Luke and Leia. And he has all these flashback images and things that have happened, stuff that we've seen in the series, things that we've seen in other movies. And that for me was like, that was what helped him finally get to this level of Force power that he had never been at before. He realized that the mission here was saving them, reconnected with the Force and being selfless in that way, that this really is about them. And if he had let Vader go, the chosen one would never come to be.
Right.
And so for me, him closing his eyes, thinking about that, and then opening them and then being able to force all of those rocks off of him, quite literally. I think that was like he was reborn again in some ways, right, with the Force at that point, and stronger than he had ever been. And this is where the battle really kind of changes.
Right. And what was something that Qui-Gon gave guidance-wise to Obi-Wan really early in Phantom Menace? Don't center on your anxieties, Obi-Wan.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Let go of that. Focus on the here and now in the present where you belong. And he had all of these voices and everything that were just distracting him. And he's so caught up and it's this despair that's just threatening to literally, collapse on top of him and bury him alive, until he starts to think about the here and now and that hope, that spark of hope. I mean, a new hope type of thing, comes across as he starts to think of the kids and what this means and what they need to do later on in life, not necessarily what he needs to do, but what he needs to do his part of in order to do it. And that's why I made the comment about the kind of the connecting living force, because it's very much like you just said, letting go of everything else and accepting what it is now and moving forward and taking it and pushing forward. And that's just so important for Jedi of any age, really, whether you're young or old, because at some point you are going to experience this one or probably numerous times where things are just not going to go well for a while. And so many things have gone wrong for Obi-Wan over the last 10 plus years now, to where this is a moment where for him to finally have that enlightenment is really key. And of course, very timely, of course, but
yeah. And we didn't talk about the lines, but I mean, there's a number of them, this is all these lines that were coming back from Revenge of the Sith and this series.
All the ones you'd expect to hear were all there.
Yeah. The last two were I do not fear the dark side and I am what you made me. So all of that. And then we get the Leia and Luke stuff, and that's what kind of snaps them out of it.
And again, and the scenes that they selected at first were just kind of, them being kids, but towards the end of that, it was love and admiration and connection and bonding. And those were the things that, that of all things, compassion and passion are the thing that helped save Obi-Wan to move him to the next, to this next version of himself. And that moment is really, really powerful when you're able to, connect like that, because the Jedi are always, it's a misnomer that they have to disconnect from everything because they're so afraid of attachments and that's very sound advice, but it doesn't mean you cut yourself off from absolutely everything. Mm-hmm. And there are things that you can gain strength from rather than viewing them as weaknesses. And so it was really cool to see that in play and for him to use the kids as, even though he doesn't have this connection with Luke, which we don't really see all that clearly until the very, very end here, but especially that connection he's formed with Leia, all of those moments to build to this one moment, was pretty touching. And really, again, the feeling inside of you, the excitement just starts to build as soon as you start to see those scenes flash by, and you just see the release of things on Obi-Wan's face. Yeah. And so you just know. And of course, then you're like, what the hell's going to happen now?
Yeah, exactly.
It certainly didn't accept him just to blow it all out and then start force jumping his way out of the cavern there, or out of the pit. So that was pretty neat.
I mean, my key takeaway from the scene, what I loved the most about it was that the fact that Obi-Wan saved those children, right, back in Revenge of the Sith. And in some ways, the children have saved him. Like, he was completely buried. He was losing the battle. And somehow their memory, as loose as it may be with Luke, but certainly his connection with Leia and everything they had gone through, they returned the favor. Even if they didn't do it consciously, they were enough to help him survive and get through. And like you said, get to this next level of force power that he was going to need in order to overtake Vader.
Absolutely.
And so jumping back into what's going on here, this is another failed attempt yet again by somebody trying to sneak up on Vader. Vader certainly stops it. And this is where Kenobi goes one-handed at this point. He's clearly,
the roles are reversed. Yeah.
Roles reversed. He pulls I want to say, I've watched it a couple times. I've not seen Revenge of the Sith, but I want to say he uses one of those lightsaber spins that Anakin uses in that fight. It looked exactly like it. So I wouldn't say it's showboating, but it's showing a level of lightsaber skill that he hasn't probably ever had, or
in the zone, as they like to say.
Exactly, yeah, in the zone at this point.
Well, in the twirl and the handoff behind his back was just fun to watch, right? I mean, that was just all right. I mean, this is Obi-Wan, right? It's time for the royal butt kicking that Vader's been waiting for.
Yep. But yeah, if you watch that, he's one-handed all the way up until he finally lifts the rocks. He's only using one hand, and Vader, it goes to two hands. So again, literally the tides are starting to turn here, and very defensive postures. The postures change quite a bit. He's constantly going backwards. I mean, there's very rarely you see him going forward at this point, where it's completely reversed in the other way. In the first fight, we get Vader blocking the saber with the Force. Again, very impressive. I love that. The fact that they're still using it. I'd like to see that more. Kenobi pushes Vader into the rocks with a force push. That's not an easy feat to do, number one, and then two, to take advantage. Again, we've talked about this. There's an unspoken rule that in order for one force user to overcome another force user with like force pushes and all that, there's got to be some advantage there. And clearly he has it, because he didn't just like push him out of the way. I mean, he sends him flying and hitting his back into this one of the spires there that starts the whole kind of that whole next moment here of the rocks, right? I'm trying to remember if this is, no, a little bit later it happens again.
Yeah, one of them he pushes him back, but Vader keeps his balance and just kind of skids a ways back. But yeah, the next time he actually gets drilled into the rocks, and that's when the barrage begins.
Yeah. This was a cool moment for me. Like, again, for all the reasons we've already talked about, mostly because of the Old Republic, but the fact that he's, like you said, he's got all these rocks in the air and he's pummeling them with them, and he's just unconsciously doing it. He's not looking at them. It's very different than earlier where he had to look at everything and he was pointing at stuff. And I mean, it's just a display of power that I thought was great, and one that I don't think Vader was expecting. I mean, it's he does the same thing to Luke when we get to Empire Strikes Back, and pummeling him with all kinds of things. Plenty of examples in comic books and other Legends material where this happens. But the first time that I recall that Obi-Wan Kenobi was doing it at this level, Vader was not expecting it, gets completely caught off guard. And I think this starts the beginning of the end for him, because he has taken some massive hits from these rocks.
Yeah,
and I was expecting him to be able to. Yeah, I was expecting him to hit a couple of them. I couldn't tell. It didn't look like he hit any of them. It looked like he was just constantly getting bombarded with them.
I think you're right. I think he was basically crouched. Now, something that when the rocks would hit him, it seemed like they were kind of going around a little bit. So maybe there was a bit of a force barrier there that it was keeping him from taking severe damage, right? Because I mean, the rate of speed and the size of these rocks, these would have been devastating blows for anyone like us, right? Yeah. One of them at that velocity would have been devastating, but presumably he's got something of a protection in place that's keeping him from taking the full brunt of it, but clearly still being impacted by it until he gets fed up and takes a swing at one and goes on the attack again, knowing that he's not going to win in that defensive posture, because it's Vader and Anakin. That's not what they do.
Yeah.
So but again, it was so effortless for Obi-Wan, though. That was the part that just blew me away.
Yeah.
He just slowly starts walking towards him. I mean, it was like a very prophetic moment in some ways, right?
Yeah, it was good stuff. I mean, it was a big highlight for me, high point for the fight. But they re-engage in combat. And here's where this next part happened. And you got to really kind of pay attention to what's going on, because you kind of miss it, I think, if you don't. But they do something that I've never seen them do before, like any Jedi battle. And you correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody in the chat, please call it out if you've seen it before. But they actually lock hands. Like, if you look at his left hand, their left hands locked together, and they're almost locked at the wrists for just a few moments, and they're fighting that way. So they're fighting one-handed, but they're holding each other's wrists together, and they're kind of spinning around. Now, the only other time I've ever seen this, and I'm just kind of a joke, the only other time I've ever seen this is in the Michael Jackson Beat It video, where they grab each other's hands and they're, with the
jumping
knives,
around.
Yeah, jumping around. They're holding each other by their wrists.
Like West Side Story.
Yeah, or West Side Story would be another one, right? Sharks and the Jets kind of thing. But I'd never seen this before with the Jedi. It was very interesting that they did this. I don't have a really good reason as to why. I don't know.
Either.
But what it did allow, though, and maybe this was part of it, it did allow for Obi-Wan to get into a position to pummel his controls in the front with the what do you call it, the hilt of his lightsaber.
The pommel.
Yeah, the pommel. And man, he beats the crap out of him with that. I mean,
oh gosh, royally.
Yep, and I think that was pretty smart of him. So I don't know if that was a way for him to ensure that he didn't get any distance, right? Maybe that was part of his strategy, is to get in that close, get into some close quarter combat kind of thing, and holding on to Vader in that regard would ensure that continues to happen, so that he couldn't just back away. I would challenge that Vader's iron grip is probably stronger than Kenobi, but again, he's super Jedi at this point, so
clearly stronger than his iron lung.
Yeah. But yeah, no, I thought that was great. I mean, he pummels the crap out of his chest there for about 3 or 4 times. Sparks are flying. This is
all the lights, everything's shut down, right? And you can hear and then Wheezy comes back, right?
Yeah, old Wheezy's back at that point.
Struggling instantly to the point where, and then Obi-Wan has the advantage with the grip and is able to get behind him and get a bit of a quick slash across the back too. And I mean, Vader's just in really rough shape at this point.
Yeah, it was great to see that slash against the back. The cape's lit up on fire as well. So I mean, yeah, and then
but it didn't tear. But it didn't tear all the way.
No, it didn't tear. Well, it's like
that's some durable stuff, man.
Yeah, I think it's impervious to like laser or blaster bolts too.
Well, it didn't go all the way across. It just went through the middle. So
there you go.
Very
thick. It wasn't like fin across the back. But this is where he gets that second force push in on him. Vader dodges, and there's a lot of stuff that's kind of happening here. And then this is where we finally get Kenobi, who does this like, what is that? Again, I think it's Gladiator. What was it? There was a movie where it was Troy. Remember the trailer for Troy with Brad Pitt where he jumps off something and like does that stab move, and then every other action movie that we saw for the next 5 years had that same jumping, stabbing thing. I think it's called a Superman punch.
It's a very wild and unexpected move from Obi-Wan, right?
I think so too. Like he's doing things that I don't think I've ever that's not even like any one of the forms, right? The traditional Legends forms that Jedi learn. So he's off script at this point, right? It's just pure.
Well, he's almost like Anakin was, right? A bit more offensive, taking advantages where he has them. Again, I think the other difference though is when Obi-Wan would take an advantage, he would pull back and he'd reset into defensive position, and then he would reassess and go back in. So he was doing it in a very measured kind of way, but still clearly being way more aggressive and way more assertive than his typical fighting style is.
Yeah. So there's sorry, I got distracted by the comments. I wasn't reading over here. West Side Story came up. Ken said, "Or eat it," which is I forgot about that. That's the other video where they were locking wrists there.
Right.
So, okay. So that whole stab thing. So this is going to get into now the parallels of the Twilight of the Apprentice season finale of Rebels season 2, where Ahsoka gets that shot at him. We were expecting this to happen. I think we talked about it a lot because we wanted to see. I think we were trying to figure out a way. How can we get a Hayden Christensen performance without necessarily doing like the flashback that they did or that spooky, I'm here but I'm not here shot that they did.
Yeah.
And
this was kind of inevitable for this to happen, right?
Yeah, I think so.
What I liked about the difference with Twilight of the Apprentice, though, is that was Anakin's right side of his face, and this was the left side.
Yep. And this also explains now, because if you look at the scar on the top there, it explains when that helmet comes off or Return of the Jedi, and he's got those scars up there. They've now explained that piece of it very subtly.
That was unexpected. Yeah, that was unexpected. Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
So good that they actually put that in there.
Again, there were so many little Easter eggs like that they're really funny.
Yeah. Let's see. Excuse me. And then let's get into the dialogue here, because Kenobi says Anakin, right? He's seeing now Anakin here, and we'll talk about the lighting as well, because they did. Deborah Chow does some really great stuff with the lighting and kind of signaling who's speaking underneath that helmet at times, which is amazing stuff.
I want to ask you whether you believe that that's actually what's happening, but symbolically, I get with the dialogue, I get it, but
I think it's more symbolic. More symbolic than literal. But he says Anakin, and then the response is Anakin's gone. And he says, "I am what remains." Now he says that word "I am." When he says "I am what remains," he says it very sadly. Like, it doesn't feel like there's like an evil intent. Like he could easily say that. He says other things that seem very sinister in terms of
more
how
menacing.
he delivers it. Yeah, menacing. But this one is very like saddened or almost like he's suffering, right? And we know that to be the case. So this is the first time that I feel like Anakin is starting to kind of creep up just a little bit here,
right?
But Ewan's face when he says that, right? We cut back over to Ewan McGregor as Kenobi, and his facial expressions, like. There's moments where she's holding that shot and it's just lingering on his face because we're getting so much raw emotion from him without him saying a single word, and him struggling to get the next words out of I'm sorry, Anakin, for all of it. That whole piece right there is like some of the best work I think Ewan McGregor's ever done. Right? I mean, it
was incredible.
I mean,
and again, when you look at that, when you take that scene, when the passion and what we saw at the end of Revenge of the Sith, like you were my brother, I loved you, but you could hear the anger in some of that too, right? the confusion, the frustration, all of this swirling of emotions, where in this one, he was just heartbroken.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, he was also letting that go and resolving himself that, you know what, I've got to accept that this is reality.
Yeah.
And I had a part in it, and I wish I would have done things better than what it did to God is here. But at the same time, and I mean, but then Anakin or Vader kind of does him a favor though, with how he follows up with that.
Yeah. And it's
Right.
also here that light changes. So up until this point, Vader is cast in this like red shadow of his lightsaber. And then the lighting changes from red to blue so that Anakin now can Vader still, but delivers that next line of, "I am not your failure, Obi-Wan." Now he says, "I'm not your failure" in the Anakin Skywalker voice, now with the blue light over his face. He says the word Obi-Wan in Vader's voice, which I don't really read too much into that because that voice modulator is kind of on the fritz anyways, so it's kind of hard to say that, it was Vader that said that and not Anakin. I don't know, and let's just pause here because this is what we were talking about earlier. I don't know how much of Anakin, like I believe Vader in a lot of ways, that Anakin really is gone at this point.
Yeah.
I don't know that this is so much, I think there's a little bit of Anakin that creeps up here, but when he says that I killed him, he says when I killed, or what was the word here? You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker, I did.
Right.
He says that very sinister, and I
Yeah.
believe him 100% that he does feel like he truly is dead.
Oh, the smile he gives before he says "I did"
Mm-hmm.
is creepy AF, man.
Yeah, you can just see it slowly building and kind of coming up on I guess it would be our right hand of the screen, but his left side of his mouth, as that smile and that smirk is coming up, is pretty eerie in terms of how he does it.
And again, it's that satisfaction, and I think at this point, Anakin really is gone, and Obi-Wan is not the person to bring him back or to reach him or to connect with him at all.
Yeah.
And that's why I think this is Vader through and through throughout this conversation because Anakin places, Obi-Wan at fault for a lot of the things that have happened, right? For not joining him, for ruining, whatever happened with Padme and the death of Padme, right? And all the hopes and dreams that he had in order to, for a happy life, and at the same time though, Vader is like, I killed Anakin to free me from all of that past and all those memories and everything else. I had to kill Anakin in order to deal with some of that stuff. And now granted, he still uses that to fuel rage and fuel his hate and fuel his, sadness in a lot of ways too, for the dark side. But on some level, it's still all, that was the way that he felt he had to move forward, was to kill that old life, even though he draws on it every single day. It's kind of this interesting dichotomy of thought here, and this almost like psychological break that he's had with really truly really truly dissociative type of behavior, right? Of having two characters or two people within you and potentially feeling them at war. But at this point, the quieter the voice of the one that's been beaten way down is Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah, I don't want to get into like multiple personalities and all that. That's probably at the heart of it all. I don't think that's really Star Wars, in my opinion.
No, and I'm not saying that's exactly what it is.
I know
but you feel it in this moment, though, right? They're two different people, and that's not new. But you really feel it here. He's talking about himself in the third person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So getting back to the light here and what she did with the blue light, it does feel like there is a part of Anakin that's come up. Like I do truly in my heart of hearts believe that was like Anakin was trying to come up and absolve Obi-Wan in some way, and that was about as good as he was able to get, because this other persona, or the fact that the dark side had taken over him so much, wasn't going to allow any more than that, right? They were never going to have this reconciliation kind of discussion. They were never going to get into like, why did you do this, and all that. That is long, long gone. But I do feel like because she was playing with the light in this particular scene, the way she did, and specifically in that moment where he says, "I am not your failure," and it is Anakin's voice, I do believe there's a part of me that believes that was Anakin at least trying to come up to the surface and give Obi-Wan just enough to be able to let this thing go. Because I think in that moment, that is exactly what happens. for Obi-Wan, I don't know that he saw that. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. But I think it was enough for him to really just kind of let the past go. Like, I forget the line in the first episode or the second episode where it was Tala that said, sometimes you got to let these things go.
Yeah, you got to forget. Yeah.
And that was enough for him to kind of finally just release, right? Because in the very after that, when he says, you didn't kill Anakin Skywalker, I did, that light turns immediately, again, intentionally turns from blue to red, and we get the smirk, and that is the dark side presence that Vader.
And you see it on Obi-Wan's face too. You start to see that shift on Obi-Wan's. I think the other thing that is fun to think about though is when we hear "I am not your failure," Obi-Wan. If Vader is the one saying all of that, I was anticipating a different follow-up to that comment. I'm not your failure. I'm your greatest creation type of thing. It's like this Frankenstein type of moment, right? Which, ironically, is how Revenge of the Sith ended with Frankenstein. So that's how I started to view it and internalize it. Was I'm not your failure. It was, while it started to feel like an absolution for Obi-Wan, and maybe he interpreted a little bit that way, but I still really feel like it was probably all Vader in control, and that wasn't this, at least the way I viewed it, at least didn't feel like Anakin was surfacing a bit, even though it's a very ambiguous statement of who is I in that position, right? Because again, it's unclear who we're always talking to when in these moments where Anakin and Vader are struggling with who they want to, what life do they want to associate with? Maybe not personality, but which life do they want to associate with? Yeah. And kind of be a part of and live in that moment, and which one is not.
There's going back to let's compare this just quickly with the fight from Twilight of the Apprentice. I don't remember what show it was. You reminded me that I had said this, but I wanted to bring it up. When that happens, and you get Anakin saying Ahsoka. His eyes changed colors, and I don't know that we saw that. It's so dark, and with the lighting and everything, it's really hard to see. I never saw a moment here where his eyes were yellow. I could be wrong, but
you can kind of, if you look at the shapes of the eyes, it kind of seems like the Sith eyes are always present. Where I agree with you in Twilight of the Apprentice, it did seem like there was a momentary difference there, though.
Yeah. But when he's calling her and saying Ahsoka, like even to this day, I don't believe that was Anakin. Like, I think that was a ploy to get her to come to him, because I think at that point he's so far gone, he's so lost. Yes, he had a relationship with her, and I don't want to turn this into a Rebels discussion. Yeah, but I just don't know that I believe that was really.
I think the parallels are important.
At that point. No,
and that's exactly how I feel too. And I think that this is a very, a more literal parallel with Rebels in that regard, where I think it's very much all Vader all the time at this point. Because again, we're still 10 years removed from everything that's happened, and Vader's Billy Badass right now, right? And so I firmly believe that he's trying to show Vader's the one in control, and he's, even if he might be overdoing it a bit, maybe going over the top, but I very much equate it very, very similarly to Rebels. And I'm with you on Rebels, and I'm applying the same logic here. But again, he's not trying to lure Obi-Wan in like I kind of felt like he was trying to lure Ahsoka in of sorts.
Yeah. So just quickly to the chat, because some folks are chiming in here on this fight. That smirk on his face behind the broken mask is haunting when he says, "I did." That's from Qui-Gon Jinn. Gary says, agreed, Jonesy. I've always viewed Vader as a trauma-induced personality split. We could see Anakin in that broken helmet. The look in his eyes reminded me of James McAvoy in Splintered. I've never seen that movie. I'm assuming that's similar there, though. And then Lauren says, I heard a hint of Anakin coming up for a half second to say that. I guess the line of "I'm not your failure." So I think it's awesome either way, really.
It's a great debate point. Yeah, it's a great debate point, actually.
And it's going to be something that'll be debated forever, right? Yep. Hopefully, maybe the writers come out. Maybe, what's his name? Colby. What's his name? Darn it. Joby.
Oh, Joby. Yeah.
Forget his last name. Or his first name. Either way.
Howard, whatever.
Harold.
Harold. Yeah, there you go.
Hopefully he'll come out and maybe explain some of this stuff. Maybe he doesn't, right? That's always some of the fun of Star Wars.
Or maybe even Hayden. I mean, Hayden likes to talk and likes to share all the things sometimes he's not supposed to share. So
right, yeah. That would be cool. Okay, so now that we've got the red face back on here, right? The red lighting is hitting his face. It's hitting Kenobi's face. The next line is the same way I will destroy you, and then we get the callback to Return of the Jedi, which is then my friend is truly dead. And we had what was it? We did an episode with it was more from a certain point of view when we were doing that series. There, someone had brought on, I think it was Josh, wanted to talk about that scene.
Yeah.
Josh from over at Film Appraisers wanted to talk about that scene in particular, and this is one of the lines that we had talked about your, Obi-Wan once thought as you did. This is where I think this line is coming in, right? I think that's where he's echoing because he's hearing the same words almost literally come out of Obi-Wan's mouth that he hears later coming out of Luke's mouth. Probably no question in that part. And then, and I want you to chime in here in just a second, but the other pieces where he says goodbye, Kenobi says goodbye, and then he pauses and then says Darth, which I think it's not a retcon of any kind like that or any of that, but I think it does certainly recontextualize that whole "you're only a master of evil" Darth. And we'll get into that here in a little bit of what that probably meant and some of the early scripts and all that. But what are your thoughts, I guess, on this whole little exchange and the callback?
Well, yeah, and Rob in the chat stole my thunder here. So he said, with Darth saying he killed Anakin, it helps with the story Obi-Wan tells Luke later on in A New Hope, where he says that Vader betrayed and murdered his father. Right. And so from that certain point of view, that exchange 100% explains that. And it's not really quite a point of view. It's really figuratively literal, I guess is maybe what the best way I could probably explain it. Figuratively literal. Yeah. But I kind of took it like Rob. I thought that was another component, like 3 things you could take from this one scene. And again, man, my friend is truly dead. I mean, the resonance that has with him and with Vader and Luke. And again, I think when you go back and rewatch Jedi after some of this stuff, or Return of the Jedi rather, some of these scenes with Luke and the conflict with Vader, him saying, "I feel the conflict in you, let go of your hate." I mean, it just starts to take on a completely new, maybe not new, but a completely, oh man, it just unlocks a lot of things that we kind of had a feeling were all there, but now we know what some of them were.
Yeah.
And to have all of that additional context, and I think I tweeted this earlier today that, Obi-Wan has done such a fantastic job of enhancing so much of the content that we absolutely love, both prequel trilogy, original trilogy, non-movie and television media, and just so many different things. It's pulled from so many different ways, and it's enhanced it. That one of the greatest gifts this show has given us, I think, is that it has just given us a new appreciation and given us renewed eyes on some of the content that we grew up with and that we love, no matter which era you grew up in. And so I think that is just so much fun. And scenes like this where you can apply it to multiple things across different timelines is just fantastic. And I mean, this scene, and again, him calling him Darth is, again, accepting that this is who he is. Anakin's truly gone. I have to move past this being Anakin. But again, it's important, though, that he still shows Darth Vader mercy, right? Which goes back to their fight, or to the flashback combat training, when he talks about mercy, right?
Yep.
And again, we see this with Reva a little bit later on. But that scene makes a lot more sense now. He is still showing him mercy even after all of this, and knowing that while it's done, this is all kind of done now, showing him that mercy again, at some point, will that pay off? And is that the moment that pays off when Vader decides to intervene with Luke and the Emperor?
Yeah.
So again, it's just, you could just keep peeling off these layers of what all of these things mean and how you want to apply them. And I might be looking into it too much, but
no,
you do. No, that's right. I'm preaching to the choir here, I know, but still, I mean, but it's just one of those things you can just keep peeling these things off, and you could just go down these rabbit holes of what else am I missing that I haven't applied to this yet. And how excited does that make you to go back and rewatch some of those scenes and then go rewatch this? I think I tweeted this again earlier today too. I don't rewatch a lot of stuff. I don't rewatch even Star Wars. I rewatch a lot of stuff for the show, but I don't rewatch TV or movies very, very often. This is a series that I actually want to go and rewatch start to finish, and probably will do multiple times. Rewatching these episodes has been like the easiest job I think I've ever had in my life.
Mhm.
And we've reviewed some really good content, but this has just been so easy to watch, you know, and especially these last few episodes here. But anyway, I've kind of gone on for a while here, but man, I just love how much it just makes it just like it reaffirms why you're a Star Wars fan and that you are a Star Wars fan. You know, when these things get you that excited. And that's what I'm excited when I hear people get energized about this and have that same kind of energy and want to talk about it. It's just so cool. And this episode has given, oh gosh, I'm on a soapbox now, but at work, people want to talk about this episode with me. And usually it's a really candid, surface level conversation, but nope, not this one.
Yep.
We have gone in the weeds with a few folks and gotten a lot of real high class work done in the process.
I'm sure.
Especially during a really stressful couple of weeks, but
Yeah.
you know, but it pulls it out of everyone, man. It just pulls it out of everyone that wants to have fun with this.
Yeah. I mean, it's a gold mine of content for us to go back and, you know, use as parallels and comparisons. I agree that it's a reaffirmation on a lot of things that we just suspected. You know, stuff that we'd always thought about and theorized about, and now it's just been reaffirmed in a lot of ways. And there's a lot of stuff that's been that it punctuates. You know, plenty of examples here.
That's a right way to put it. Yeah,
where stuff that we've always talked about is 100% reaffirmed and gives us the answers. Like and that's what we were hoping out of the series. So this episode, in particular, is one that I think goes back and it fills in the blanks for a lot of the stuff. And I know a lot of the people that had the feedback about this series and what they were answering, what they weren't answering. Are we going to ever get this? Are we ever going to get that? This episode did deliver, I think, on a lot of points in that regard as well.
That's the thing, was the payoff there, everyone? That was unsure we were going to get there.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking it's not a yes, it's a hell yes.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. So the Darth thing, just quickly on that, like if you go back and you read some of the earlier scripts, I'm not convinced that Lucas had Darth as a title. To me, the way those scripts are read was that was a name, like that was the character's name, Darth Vader. Later on, it became a title, and then he fit that all into obviously what that title meant and everything. And I think that's how when Episode 4 came out, we all took it as that was his first name. Oh, his first name is Darth. Later on, when it comes to find out that's a title, then I was like, okay, well that's Kenobi being snarky, using that as quote a first name, calling him Darth, right? Almost. He's almost like making light of it in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
And then with this one, it reaffirms, I think, maybe that he calls him that in that way. I don't know. It doesn't come off as snarky as I would like for it to have been in order for that to kind of justify it. But either way, it at least provides some consistency of why he would call him that at that moment and then see it again in A New Hope. So whether you like the answer or not, I do appreciate the fact that they went back to that. The other, I guess the way this scene really ends is just this, he has this Darth Maul moment. He has the Kenobi scream, only it's Obi-Wan. And that, I mean, Vader,
it's one of those, don't walk away from me.
Yep. Yeah. And he says it twice, Obi-Wan. But
I mean,
you can
the distortion on the voice modulator was just that second.
Yeah, at the very end.
Yeah, this just primal type of scream.
But a really great job beginning to end on this fight. Really great job with the use of color, lighting, the cinematography. I will say this, and I didn't say this at the beginning, but my only problem that I think with this particular episode and maybe the series, the feedback is what I said last time, and that's the shaky cam at times worked really well. Other times didn't really work well for me. Think about some of the other fights that Lucas has done. And again, you can hide a lot of stuff with that, and I get why some directors use it, so it makes sense. And I think it accentuates certain types of shots and certain types of scenes by using the shaky cam. But that would be the only negative, I think. But otherwise, the music was great. I thought for this battle, it wasn't Duel of Fates and it wasn't anything else, but it was certainly enough that got us very emotional. And I think it was there, right?
It really felt like it felt like this episode had a lot of very John Williams inspired type of melodies and tunes, and that kind of, it really did fit very well with John Williams scores. I think in particular, probably original trilogy type of scores. I think this episode did that. Made that seem more seamless link there, I think.
Yep, I would agree. So we'll get to now him heading out to Tatooine, but the one thing I do want to just quickly call out, when he says Luke, when he's having the visions and realizes, he sounds like Alec Guinness 100%. And I don't know if he was, it almost sounds like he's doing an impersonation when he goes, Luke. Or I can't do it because I'm sick right now, but whatever. When he does that, it sounds exactly like Alec Guinness saying that line. So that's all. Okay.
Well, it was also very reminiscent of Leia in Empire too.
Reminiscent of Empire. Oh yeah.
When she's
reaching out
kind of and she more or less kind of sees Luke as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Everybody's always looking out for Luke.
Looking for Luke.
Looking for Luke. That's how the next line starts here on the show notes. But so we get to Tatooine, and Kenobi's.
I didn't even notice that.
It actually literally says looking for Luke. Kenobi's out there. He gets there and immediately is about to rush off to the Dune Sea, looking for him. I was expecting for them to be more dialogue. Like, what are you doing here, you son of a, you know what, and all that.
Right.
That was
will take all the help they can get at that moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and so it's funny you say that because we didn't talk about this, but when Beru is saying, well, we know what we have to do. We have to fight, and he's like, well, Ben's gone. She goes, well, whose fault is that? I was like, yes, that's right, Owen. Take it on the chin.
Yeah. The voice of reason here.
And again, clearly, I mean, you talk about connections, right? Connections to A New Hope. They clearly have differences of opinion about what Luke's, future should be, or what his, what his journey should look like. So it's interesting to kind of see a little bit of that dissonance here. I think that was really kind of nice to see that she's not necessarily on the same page as Owen, and he's a bit of a hardliner at times. Although I say that, and then he acts like he did at the very end of this one, which was very sweet.
Well, character growth, right? But I would agree that he's definitely a hardliner up until that moment, and even then, I don't think that wasn't his watershed moment. I think he was still the same. I mean, we see
he was at a moment of weakness. Yeah, he felt bad.
He felt bad, and he'll never regret that, or he'll always regret that moment.
Right. Well, and clearly there's something else that probably happens later on no, we won't speculate on that because that's not what we're here for today.
But getting back to Beru, like when she's sitting there smiling, going, "Oh, he just has too much of his father in him," and I'm thinking she's like thinking about all the people he's murdered.
Right.
She's saying that like it's no big deal, and he's really pissed off about that. Okay, but Reva, let's get back to this. So Reva's coming out of the desert, and this is where I felt like the volume didn't work again. Honestly,
yeah, it looked very.
I mean, it is
very small. Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. That's where we're at these days, and it makes sense why they're using it. So we have to accept it.
It'll get better. It's just that dimension. I just need that extra layer of dimensions missing. But otherwise, it's
that depth. Yeah, the depth just isn't there. Yeah.
But nonetheless, so Reva's coming out of the desert at this point, very similar to Anakin coming out of the desert with Padme.
Shmi.
Not Padme. Shmi, right, in her arms. And I think one of the cool differences right there, the symbolism maybe, or the difference there is he's coming back after murdering women and children, and she's coming back after at least murdering children. How about that? We'll just leave it at that. He's coming back after having murdered children, and she's coming back having not murdered a child, and yet the symbolism of them both coming back. And so look, that is showing us that their paths are going to go a very different way at this point, right? Excuse me. But Reva says, I couldn't do it. I failed them. He killed them all, and I couldn't do it. So I want to get your thoughts on this, because it does sound like she's talking about, obviously, her family, right? Her Padawan friends were all killed, and she feels like she's let them down because she couldn't follow through with this final act of really, killing somebody that was of importance. Again, we won't get into the whole does she know kind of thing, because I don't think that's the case, and it's probably not relevant, but she definitely does feel like she's let everybody down, to which Kenobi says, you haven't failed them. You've shown them mercy, which is a big theme of this series, but go ahead.
If there was one crack in the armor of saying that Reva didn't know that these kids might have been Anakin Skywalkers, I think this is that moment where people will probably latch onto it, and I can see why they would. And because this is it's an interesting line, because if she, what I mean by that is that if she kills Luke, then she kills the offspring of Anakin, so where she can stop this from all happening again. And that's the justice she might be looking for, that she can at least, at some point, this will end and the Skywalker line will end. So for the folks that believe that she had an idea or she made some connection, even if it wasn't concrete, I think that's the avenue you travel in order to get there. And I think there's something there that is vague enough that it's just unclear, but I think that's a very real possibility. The other side, though, is I think that, by not making the kill on Luke means that she's also not strong enough to then take on Vader later on too, right? So in order to enact her justice and revenge for her former Jedi family, as ironic as it would be of doing this type of act, again, Vader did it and it made him stronger because he was able to kill that part of him and become something that he perceived as stronger. And Reva has that same type of, misnomer that's actually what happens, and that's how you gain power, and that's how you do something to the next level. And so I think those are the two things that probably she might be referencing in that moment, rather than, I failed them, that she wasn't able to truly do justice for them. I think she was trying to do this to just move herself along so she could take care of Anakin / Vader in some other kind of way.
Yeah, I see. I know. I get what you're saying.
She needs to become him to beat him, basically.
Right.
I think I've had to be more succinct with it.
No, you're right, and that's
the theme for her anyway, right?
It is, right? She's whether she even realizes it or not, it's that whole thing about you live long enough to become the villain or whatever, right? In
Batman,
Batman, there's probably some Stockholm syndrome going on here, where she's been, she gave herself up to kind of become part of this, and now this is all kind of acceptable, and she wants to be like Vader, even though she wants to kill Vader. I mean, there are people out there that are like that. I know people are poking holes in that and saying that doesn't make sense. Well, you know what? There are a lot of crazy people out there, and she may have had this kind of notion of like, in order to kill him, I have to become him, or I'm obsessed with the fact who he is, and I want to be like him. And so she needed to go through with this final act to kind of feel that way. Think about Kylo Ren; he did the same thing.
Well, think about the good guys too. Think about Andor in Rogue One, right? You do what has to be done to further your cause, even though you get dirty sometimes, right? So even good people make these decisions as well, and we've seen a lot of examples of that in more recent Star Wars.
Yes, no, 100%. There's an example there. The Kylo Ren one, just on that one, it's the same reason why he had to. We debated again ad nauseum about why he killed Han Solo. Why did he have to do that, right? And I think there's definitely reasons as to why now, whether it's you like them or not, in him wanting to suddenly become more like Vader. I mean, it's the same thing, right? He was trying to become like Vader. He felt like he needed to go through with this act. That was his only way to release, even though he probably held some kind of light for Han Solo. The fact that he did that was what he needed to prove to himself, or to have a way to prove whether or not that was a path that he was truly destined to go down or wanted to go on, or was he really going to be pulled over to the light. So he went through with this heinous act of killing his father and didn't feel any better after it, which I think was, partly why he eventually turns to the light. But I think this is for her too. Like she was down this path. She wanted to become like Vader. She wanted to kill Vader as well. I think those aren't mutually exclusive. They can both exist in the same space. And it was only through killing these innocent children, which yes, she's had time to do, but because of all the connections, she really felt like she needed to go through with that act. And at the end of the day, the light was brighter than the dark this year. And so she wasn't able to go through with that.
I've always been kind of curious about, we always use the phrase, are you afraid of the dark? Right. Are you too afraid of the dark side to go to the dark side? Is that a possibility? Because that kind of seems like that kind of came to mind when I'm seeing her hesitation here. And I'm glad you highlighted Lauren's comment there about Quinlan Voss. Thought he did what he thought he had to be done. Again, you join the enemy to make a difference from inside and corrupt it from the inside, but that usually doesn't work.
Right.
But yeah, I just wondered if sometimes you're so afraid of doing and becoming what you're afraid of becoming that you chicken out for all the right reasons, right? And it seems like that's what it is. But again, to your point, maybe that's the light keeping you from doing something stupid too, right? Or something else stupid that really puts you past the point of no return.
Yeah. Kenobi finishes up where he says, you haven't failed him, but you showed them mercy. I think you mentioned it, but this is a callback to the fight where he says, Master, or mercy doesn't defeat an enemy, Master. Well, it absolutely does. You know,
Yeah.
we've seen that in this moment. We're going to see it later on with Luke Skywalker and throwing his lightsaber down and showing mercy for Vader, his father. That was another
Well,
swing times.
and Obi-Wan showing mercy to Vader makes all that happen,
Yep.
so many years later too, right?
Exactly. Yep. And he continues on by saying, "You've given them peace and you have honored them." And she asked the question, "Have I become him?" Like, and she says this like she's scared.
She's
Like, again,
terrified.
she's terrified. Like, I feel like there, and I do. Okay, I want to make sure I say something here. I don't disagree. Like you said earlier, like the fact that she's saying he killed them all and I couldn't do it. He killed them. She's not talking about Kenobi, right? He, meaning Vader, killed them all and I couldn't do it. So you can, like you said, the way we're interpreting that is two ways. One, quite literally, she wants revenge against him. Why would she kill Luke other than she knows there's a connection there in some way, right? That would be the argument there. The argument of her becoming him, it would be the other option, and her becoming so obsessed with becoming like Vader, and that finally, now that the dust is settled and the act was not followed through, she's looking to Kenobi for some kind of a reassurance that she didn't actually cross that path. She hasn't become Vader, and she wants him to tell him, and he says, "No, you've chosen not to. Who you become now, that's up to you." Like the realization that fear, right, that she had gone too far, even though she didn't go through with the act. Had she gone too far and had her destiny been set forth for her forever, or was there a way for her to come back from that? And I don't think if Kenobi had not been there, right, I don't know that she would have been able to see that. She had somebody believe in her. She had somebody see the good in her for the first time, probably ever, since she left the academy. And she needed that to go on to take this new path that she was going to go down, right? She did some of it on her own, but she still needed that extra push from somebody like a Kenobi to kind of take her to that next level.
And I really like that we didn't go down the redemption path here. And I think how Obi-Wan follows this up, it says, "No, you are free." And we both are. And I think that's very important, right? So she hasn't redeemed herself for all the other bad things that she's done. She hasn't made up for any of it.
Sure.
But what she has is she has drawn the line in the sand and said no more. And she has cast off some of that. Now the guilt and things like that will continue with her for a while. And Obi-Wan knows a lot about that. But this is that first step that you have to make to be someone different. And you have stopped the obsession. You've stopped the, that I need to do all of this myself and that I have to put all this pressure on me to redeem, or to bring justice for everybody that this one person slaughtered and what the emperor has done to the galaxy and so on and so forth. This huge thing that one person, and she's like, "No, I can be something else. I can be something better. I can over time try to redeem some of my actions that I have, some of the things I've done that can't be taken away, but I can make a different decision every single day from here on out to do something else and to hopefully do something better." And to, when she throws her lightsaber on the ground, again, that symbolic gesture of just like with Kylo, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I need a lightsaber. That would be a great tool, but not that one.
Right.
Right. And so you need to start over and you need to cast off and let those things go, including the physical representations that remind you of what that is and maybe what she had to do to that lightsaber to turn it red. Although I don't think the Inquisitors are capable of doing that. But
I don't think so either.
But in theory,
Sure.
if she did that, there would be a whole nother thing to go with that too, right? And again, that's just another reminder. And if the crystals can talk to you, then I think it's a little freaky. But yeah, so I like it. I like that the way that Obi-Wan phrased it, though, with being, you are now free.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that's something that Anakin didn't learn, and that he wasn't brave enough to understand and brave enough to challenge that, or maybe not brave enough. Maybe he didn't understand the cost. And maybe that's a more accurate way. It's one thing to hear all the dangers and all the things that Master Yoda and Master Kenobi and everybody's telling you about the dark side and stuff, but until you experience it, you really don't know what you're in for. And I think we've seen that, and especially in the books and in comics and in that media in particular, I think we really see that really clearly, the toll it takes on you.
Yeah, that symbolism of her, I mean, and she does show her, I mean, they explicitly show her put that lightsaber down because it is her, she's denouncing that old life, right? That's the final action that needs to be taken. I'm glad you brought up the Kylo Ren thing because that's what he does. He chucks his lightsaber out into the middle of the ocean, and yeah, that was enough. That was kind of like the final act for him to really embrace the Ben Solo, embrace the light at that point.
Yeah, and when you see Ben cast that away, you can actually physically see the weight lift off of him and how he stands up taller and broader too. I mean, it's a very different perspective. Yeah.
I mean, like you said earlier, I would agree that she's carrying the weight of and the guilt of a lot of stuff that she has no responsibility for, right? Unrealistic for her to think that she needed to bear the burden of her Padawans being killed and the atrocities that happened there, not being able to fight and feeling like she could have done more, not having a family, right? All that stuff was weighing on her shoulders. You got Kenobi exactly on that point too, where he's been carrying the guilt for the better part of 10 years of what had happened and how he failed not only, his master in training him, but also Anakin Skywalker, how he failed Padme in not being able to help him. And now, of course, her life is gone.
The whole order,
the whole
galaxy,
order, the kids, right? All of it.
They didn't see the Emperor coming around, the clone. I mean, yeah, you could just let all of that, jump on you. Yeah.
And he says as much. I mean, the next line is, as he's helping her up, right? He reaches down, gives her a hand because he is that compassionate person. He first sympathizes with her and says, "No, you are free." And then the empathy comes in where he says, "We both are." And he means it. They are both free now. This is what they both needed to kind of move on. His path is going down one particular road that we know it's going to go on, but hers is wide open at this point, which we'll speculate come the breakdown show at some point there when we do it on the character dissection on Tuesday.
Right. And this moment really helps set up the conversation that Obi-Wan has with Owen here at the very end too.
Yeah. Okay. So let's, we cut back over finally here. And this is where I was not expecting to get a Palpatine cameo appearance. So that was really cool.
I love he looked very Return of the Jedi Palpatine, didn't he?
Yes, he did. I thought that was awesome. But he's talking about, so Vader's talking to Palpatine about all the probes that he sent out. Clearly, he's still obsessed. He's not over this. And Palpatine says something. He says, or Vader says, "We will destroy everything in our path until he's found." And then he has this really cool,
agitated, my friend.
Very suave comeback of "You seem agitated," like, and you can see it on Vader's face, like, "Ah, crap, I shouldn't be this." He knows this is not going to go well.
He knows he's in trouble with Dad.
Yeah, yeah, Dad's on all over him at this point. He says, "I wonder if your thoughts are clear on this, Lord Vader. Perhaps your feelings for your old master have left you weakened. If your past cannot be overcome," and he just kind of lets that hang. And I think we all know what that means is Vader or Palpatine's just going to kill him, or you know what I mean? He's going to put an end to it.
He'll be replaced, yeah.
Yeah, and this feeds into the rule of two, right? You can't have the rule of two is such, and this is the part that was killing me on Twitter as I was sitting here defending a lot of the actions that Reva takes and a lot of what the actions that the Sith take. You can't, if you're a Sith and you go by the rule of two, and go back to the rule of two episode, we did a breakdown on the rule of two, but the whole lot of that Sith relationship is that you can't be out there you shouldn't be out there looking for new apprentices, although we know that happens, right?
Sure. Yeah.
These undisclosed rules or unwritten rules. You can't be doing that. But then your whole lot in life is to try to figure out how to one-up that guy above you or that woman in front of you or a person in front of you and kill them.
Right. One to have the power, one to crave it.
One to crave it. That is the rule of two. At its heart, that's what's happening. And Palpatine in this moment is telling Vader, look, you're out of line, buddy. You're actually obsessed and more interested in killing him when, as crazy as this sounds, you should be wanting
to kill me.
Kill me, yeah. So he needs to knock this crap off. You know what I mean? Like he should be refocusing on him because Palpatine knows that the more effort he puts into seeking Kenobi and killing Kenobi,
it's a risk.
It's a risk. And on top of that, it's making Palpatine weaker. He's only going to be stronger, right? Again, going back to the rule of two, he's only going to become stronger by knowing that his apprentice is out there to kill him and trying to one-up him, right? So he's doing the Emperor a disservice by not focusing his efforts on, lobbing his head off at some point.
Yeah, and in the comics, there was a comment that the Emperor makes about, I think Vader was kind of challenging him about what he should be learning and stuff like that, and Palpatine puts it in place. He said, your job is to learn what I have is to learn all the things you don't know, learn everything I know. My job is to make sure I know what you need to learn and what I am supposed to teach.
Mm-hmm.
I have to know what to teach, right? And I think this is one of those moments where he's trying to re-steer Vader back on that path of saying, you in, you out, buddy. And again, this scene is very reminiscent of Empire Strikes Back too, right? We have a new enemy. Are you sure your thoughts are clear on this, Lord Vader? Or was that Return of the Jedi? That was Return of the Jedi, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jedi. So again, very, a lot of mirroring here of sorts and a bit of foreshadowing. Very different conversation, but very, very similar in a lot of ways too, though.
Yeah, and Vader backpedals at this point and says, Kenobi means nothing. Haha, just kidding.
Yeah, it's like...
I serve only you, my master. That's not how it went. That sounds really... That's
but that's exactly what... you could tell Vader was, literally leaned back.
Like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Not again.
So moving himself to serving Palpatine at that point. And now, and if that's not enough, right, to kind of, again, punctuate that or reemphasize what's happening here, if you don't believe me, this is where the music comes in. The Imperial March comes in because we said that music means something more. We've all associated with Darth Vader. We all love the fact that Darth Vader comes walking into the Imperial March, right? However, it's not Darth Vader's theme.
Right.
It is the Imperial March. It is representative of the galaxy, of the Galactic Empire itself. And now that he's let this go, and the Emperor specifically, good point. Now that he's let that go, and the focus is now back to Palpatine and the galaxy at large, and the tight grip that they're trying to establish here, especially right now, we get the Imperial March, and that makes complete sense. And I love the fact that they used it here and had not used it prior to, even though I was a very outspoken.
There were times where it definitely would have worked.
Oh, I've seen the videos. Like I've even done it myself. Just played it and watched, and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But I think it would have taken from this particular scene here if they had done that.
I love how the Emperor basically mic drops though when he makes this comment, or Vader responds. He gives a little smirk, and then I'm out. He just didn't even respond to it.
No goodbyes.
Just let it hang out. Yeah, just let it hang out there. Yeah. Let that be the last thing, is your commitment to me. No acknowledgement, anything. That's the Emperor, man. Those are the games.
All right, and we get into the final, I guess we're wrapping up now things, so we're going to visit all
the epilogues. Yeah, all the epilogues start, right?
Tatooine. These are all the deleted scenes that were not deleted scenes, or end credit scenes that were not end credit scenes.
Right.
But we get Leia getting dressed up. I love her little outfit that she's got going on there, very similar to what we see her wearing in other, what was it in
the comic? She actually wore that in the comic books, with the boots and whatnot. Yep.
So very cool that there was a throwback there. I also like the gloves. She almost kind of looks like this is not where they were going, I'm sure. But when she put the yellow gloves on there, I think of Mando now because he's got the yellow gloves.
Well, those are green. I think those are green. Yeah, I think they're green.
Maybe I'm colorblind.
I think that's what he says in the second episode. Did they call him a color? They look green to me anyway. And maybe the devices. It may have been the devices we were watching it on too, though, right?
It could be.
Apple doesn't have great color reproduction.
Okay, here we go. No, Apple has great color. Here we go. The holster, though. Let's talk about the holster. I haven't had a chance to go back to see if this is something she wears in anything else. I don't think it is.
The one that she's got in the comics and stuff it seems much longer, more traditional for what we've seen her carry, a longer blaster. But it would be kind of cool if they're similar enough. I didn't think about that to compare it more closely.
There's my headcanon also, if you like this or not, my headcanon is she puts a Lola in there and it now becomes a Lola character or a holder, right?
The Lola pouch, yeah.
The Lola pouch. But at some point, what if when Lola passes or dies or, I don't know, she spills water on her, whatever happens to her.
Expires otherwise,
and she gets her first blaster that she names the blaster Lola. Huh?
That would be awesome. I'm on board with that.
She uses like a holdout blaster, I think. I don't remember the particular model, but that'd be kind of cool. But she says that Leia says, I'm going to do this. I'm going to want to make a few changes. And then to which Val says, well, then let's make the changes together. And I guess where I was seeing this is like her committing to, like, she was very anti-Senate, right? I don't want to become a senator. I don't want to do any of that stuff. I want to be running around in the woods and all that. And her saying that, I think, is her committing to, I want to help further this cause, right? She's now seen it. She's been a part of the battle at a very young age, even if it was tangibly connected to what was going on. She now has had a kind of a taste for this, and it's her opportunity to go and to become a rebel. And I think this is kind of what she's saying is that, okay, I'll take it up. I'll take you up on that, Dad. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that holster is a lot longer there for sure.
Yeah, so that's the one that's come up in the comics a couple times. For those listening, I pulled up from my comic collection. I've got a really nice cover from the Star Wars, the 2015 series. And so you can get a really good look of Leia in her white outfit with a belt and holster, the strap around the leg. If you can kind of picture Han Solo's type of style, very much in that, which I think is what has been in that material. But anyway, just thought I had that kind of readily available.
He looks at it a lot.
No
But
comment.
yeah, so they decide they're going to go ahead and change things, and then we get, of course, Obi-Wan coming off the ship there with Lola, fulfilling his promise that he would come back to her, which was great.
Girl needs her droid. Yeah.
Yep. This is where Bale says, I can never repay you. And then he looks at, this is a great line. She says she's already done that, right? And I think that reinforces that if not Leia, had Leia not been a part of all of this, and he was not expecting this, she, along with Luke and other things, have helped him reconnect himself to the light in a way that he had not felt in 10 years. And it's a whole new day for him, thanks to her. And so yeah, I mean, how could he repay her?
I mean, and think about it. I mean, when he leaves from Revenge of the Sith, I mean, how could you be inspired about this new journey of taking care of this kid, and for 10 years to go by and feel out of the game and feel lost, and then to get back into it and feel like you have purpose again, and to see how fragile, what that will be, and to recommit, and again, to give himself hope as well as find hope in others of what's possible in the future. I mean, it's just such a stark contrast from where he began. And I mean, and just where the jumping off point from here compared to where the jumping off point at the end of Revenge of the Sith, night and day difference. And sometimes that can be the difference of you actually pursuing what you're meant to do in life. You're on mute. You're still on mute. Bob Saget.
Sorry, I was coughing over here, trying to get a cough out, and it didn't happen. I apologize. I'll have to edit that out.
You're fine, man.
Dang it. What was I going to say? We were talking about, so Leia, yeah. The laugh that they share there at the very end, right?
Yeah.
Like, what's her name? Vivian Blair, the actress that plays Leia. That is such a natural, like, kids get a lot of crap for their acting abilities because some of it is forced. I don't know what they did to get that, but it is a very genuine reaction when she says, I think you should sleep. Right. When he says, this is right after he says, let's hope that day never comes, which is foreshadowing to, they're going to call him at some point again. But she says, I think you should sleep. And then they both have that moment where they're laughing. That Kenobi laugh that they show him where he's kind of got his arms crossed and he's kind of leaning back. That's going to be a meme, I'm telling you right now. And I will will it to happen if I have to. But I think that's it's a really great moment. And it's only followed up by an even better moment here in just 1 second, where after that happens, they cue up the Leia theme, which it just makes you tear up every time you hear it, right? But then you got, Princess Leia Organa, you are wise, discerning, kind-hearted. These are qualities that came from your mother. What I was not expecting was the next part. I guess I was, but wasn't prepared for it. And that is, but you are also passionate, fearless, forthright. And these are gifts from your father. Like, someone needs to take those two lines, take the audio, strip the audio, and give us like examples from the movies and TV shows or whatever, even
like
if it's a small clip, like a little montage, right? It doesn't have to be very long. Throw it up on TikTok. If no one does it, then I'll do it. But someone needs to put that together so we can kind of see those examples and even if you pause it, right? If you play it back where it says, Princess Leia Organa, you are wise. Show us some examples in the movies or whatever where she's wise, discerning. Show us some of those. Kind-hearted. I'm feeding you the stuff, so just go out and do this. But that would be just really powerful to kind of see all that. But I was not expecting him to be, especially after having just had that fight with Anakin Skywalker or Darth Vader, to be able to see those qualities and call them out for what they are.
And call them gifts, yeah.
And then on top of that, the risk of her going, tell me more about my father. Or now that you've brought it up, let's have that conversation. And then Leia actually not doing that. In fact, quite the opposite, saying,
Well, he says, I wish I could tell you more. And she says, it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
And I think, again, this journey for her is also reaffirmed that, this is her family. And she's going to have friends along the way, but I mean, this is her family, and they've taken her in and they care for her, and they, they provide and they do everything they can. They're trying to build this life, and she's starting to see the galaxy for what it truly is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of what is shaping what she will become now from this moment forward, of her willingness to be involved. She sees what it's going to take, and that sacrifice of sorts as well, in order to make a difference.
Yeah.
And so it's very much, again, another jumping off point for her of really spurring her into this future of what we know is going to be really great things.
Yeah, and that is they don't really hit on it very hard. But if you think about it, even going back to the cousin and questioning her, is she an Organa or not, right? I mean, that's her own little journey that she went on. I don't think we talk about that enough. Maybe we'll do a character dissection for her at some point. But she does go on this little journey of finding herself at a very young age, because she is being told that she's not an Organa. She feels like an outsider. She doesn't know her real parents. She suddenly meets somebody who does know her real parents. And at the end, when it was very easy for her to say, I want to know more, she had grown enough to say, I don't. I know where my place is. I know where my place is and is going to be going forward. I'm going to be a senator. I'm going to fall in line with what, my father wants. And I can see why he wants this, because he's doing good work, and I want to do the good work and help those Jedi. And this is my family. I've now accepted this, and no one's going to take that away from me, right? That's her little journey that she goes on that is pretty cool. And again, it's kind of just an underthread there throughout all of it.
Something we didn't touch on back when Obi-Wan was going to leave the ship with Roken and the other refugees, when he gives her the holster, and he says, and she looks at it, she goes, it's empty.
Oh, that's right. I'm not going to give
I laughed, but his response was, his response made me laugh even harder was, you're 10 years old, Leia. I'm not going to give you a blaster.
Yeah.
But you won't always be.
Yeah.
And it was just one of those moments. And I think an important moment for her to hear that she is being treated differently, because she's also behaving a bit differently in what she's shown, in that trust with Obi-Wan, but also that recognition in Obi-Wan that I can't treat her like a kid, and I can't keep, I've really kind of put her down and tried to keep her in her place when she has so much to offer. She just needs guidance, and to have faith and trust in her. And we finally saw it with Haja giving her that trust, and Obi-Wan giving her that trust, or I guess more specifically Obi-Wan with Roken and going in there to try to repair the the base or whatever. But still, it was a moment that kind of corresponds to this one that we kind of glossed over by accident.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, because I didn't. I really
that was a great
moment.
Funny moment, but also a really kind of heartfelt moment too.
Yeah, for sure. But again, this whole scene, right, pulls at your heartstrings, because not
Dude,
only,
I cry like a baby every single time. You're just talking about it, you're reading, I'm like, and then Lauren's posting crying emojis. I'm like,
But we've got the Leia's theme going, and then it ends with him saying both were exceptional people who bore an exceptional daughter.
Yeah,
which is really great. We get the call back here to, well, will I ever see you again? This is the Anakin Skywalker moment. Which that was cool. It was fine. But this next line is another one that I was on the defensive about this week or last couple of days. It's not even been 48 hours. But I said, he says maybe someday if you ever need help from an tired old man, but we must be careful. No one must know, or it could endanger us both. So the reason this is, in my opinion, the reason why he says this is because a lot of crap was given to the show going in after we found, when Leia was first introduced, everybody immediately jumped on, well, wait a second. When she's putting that message into R2-D2, she's much more formal. It sounds like she doesn't know who he is. She knew his father. Her father knew who Obi-Wan Kenobi was, but she didn't. And now they're breaking canon in some way. And I can see where that argument is. I didn't agree with it, but I could see how they could get there, right? It's not hard to get to that conclusion. But I think this line does fix all that. And it wasn't, and this was long before that was even out, right? Of course, they'd already finished the script. But what it does is it at least sets it up so that, yes, they did meet. However, because of what Obi-Wan says right here, she is going to take a very formal approach to acknowledge him and not say, hey, dude, remember when we first met X amount of years ago? I'm going to need your help again. She didn't say any of that. She addresses him as General Kenobi, right? Very formal. Years ago. And part of this is because if that message was to ever get intercepted, granted, it's incriminating in itself. I get that, right? The message is incriminating no matter what word she uses. But at least it keeps that secrecy there, that they had anything more than, or that they never had a relationship, right? That they didn't have this relationship that we see, which is very, very personal, very loving, very almost father and daughter like in many regards with the amount of time that they spent. That could not get out, and that's why that message was the way it was. So
Yeah, and it's just another example of you got to see the whole picture, you got to see the whole story before you start leaping to conclusions early on. Right. And again, they told us several weeks ago, look, everyone, canon is of utmost importance. We won't break canon. And the people, I thought that there would be immediate resolution to all of the problems, but that's not how these things work. And again, I think one of the things I'm most proud of that we try to do is while we give critiques on a smaller individual level as we go, often we come back and say, we really do need to step back and see it all as an entire picture here before you really form a final opinion.
Yeah.
And I want to call it judgment. Just we form our final opinion about whether we like it, about how well it worked, or were there gaps, or are there questions? What comes next? And so I think that's something I'm always proud that we do, is that having that recognition that you don't have everything at your fingertips yet, and let's wait and kind of see what happens and give them the benefit of the doubt. And if they don't deliver and they do break it, well, I mean,
sure.
Okay, criticism could be fair. Yeah,
right.
Criticism could be fair in that regard. But again, after one episode, we can't just light the torches and start pulling the pitchforks out and everything else. It's a bit much.
Small detail, but she says goodbye, Obi-Wan. I thought
that was an interesting one. Yeah,
did not say goodbye, Ben, because she had been calling him pretty much Ben for the most part this episode, or series.
But I think it was also telling though that does Brea call him Ben? Or she didn't say his name at all. No, Baru calls him Ben.
Baru calls him Ben, yeah, when he gets back there.
Yeah, but I think it's very telling though, because again, he's Obi-Wan, not Ben.
Right.
And especially in this moment to these people, that is his true self. You've only forgotten, whatever. But again, it's kind of the return of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and yeah.
And it could also be that Leia's doing exactly what she said she was going to do, and she's starting right here, right now. Okay, from here on out, you're Obi-Wan, right? You're Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're no longer Ben. So that could be it as well. But he says, goodbye, princess. May the force be with you. Of course, that's all the obligatory. May the force be with you. All right, let's get over to Tatooine real quick. This is where we get Ben packing up his stuff, getting out of the cave. I thought we were going to see him on apartmentfinders.com or whatever, looking for a new place or pad or whatever. And that
doesn't really seem to have a direction, does he?
No,
just kind of,
which I think is probably why. That's fine. No, I think he's comfortable with that, because I don't want to jump ahead, but we are. Because Qui-Gon shows up and they have that conversation about. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. Spoilers. Forgot. Hey, by the way, we're going to be spoiling tonight's episode.
2 hours and 42 minutes into it.
So if you've not had a chance to watch it, please go ahead and.
If for some reason you skipped all the way to this point, we're glad you landed on this moment.
Yeah. He has one final look at his cave, his literal man cave, before he leaves. And then he heads over to Lars' homestead. And this is, where is it? You got it back there, the sideshow statue.
Yes.
The Legends Kenobi.
Yeah, and actually, I shouldn't have closed my comic collection, because while the Kenobi we get the sideshow is not modeled, it was modeled off something else, actually. And so, but it is such a dead ringer, and it was so cool to see this figure come to life. But also, Star Wars Volume 2, Issue 15, released in 2016. Mike Mayhew's cover, he had a couple of different covers for this, was the inspiration for this, and it is exactly spot on. And while you kind of share your opinions, I'll pull it up, because I posted it on Twitter, and I could pull it up.
I don't have any opinions. No, I'm kidding. I'll
right, sure, yeah.
But yeah, no, I love the look. I mean, it just screams like it's jumping right off that cover that you're talking about by Mike Mayhew. Yep. Mike Mayhew. Peter Mayhew's a totally different person. But Mike Mayhew, which was cool. He had the goggles going on there. I was hoping we'd see like the Clone Wars armor thing that's from the sideshow stuff and all that, but that's okay. We didn't get that. But it was interesting though to see him head back over there, and the way he comes up and approaches him, and Owen tells him, reminds him that hey, I thought you said you were going to keep your distance, kind of thing. He's a very, very different Obi-Wan, like just the way he's carrying himself here. As we pull up the picture, yeah, there you go. If you have not had a chance to see that, look at that.
I mean, and again, it's the exact inspiration for the sideshow figure. But yeah, this is Mike Mayhew's artwork, and he actually had a couple of. They did another cover. You can kind of see it. There's the sideshow in more detail, kind of up close, And then here's the darker background. You can kind of make out the details a little bit better. But yeah,
Both had goggles. Although the ones he's wearing, they look like he's got some kind of a.
yeah, they're lighter colored, I believe, and they're a little bit different shape. But again, interpretation, the belt's a little bit different. I mean, but again,
no gaffy stick.
The tone, the undershirt that's darker than the tunic. You know, the
White sleeves.
Yeah, the jacket with no sleeves, they're kind of torn off and stuff, and all the tunics below it. So I mean, everything else is a dead ringer. The boots that we're used to seeing from, from his days as a Jedi. So yeah, clearly Obi-Wan's back in all the regards, but yeah, inspiration came from all this stuff. It's great.
But yeah, no, I mean, this was huge of Obi-Wan to come back and say, you know what, you're right, I was wrong. He needed what he needs right now is, a family, and needs parents, and I need to stop worrying about whether, he's showing, right, and all of that, and the rest of it's going to take care of itself. I mean, it's a very Qui-Gon approach to how he's looking at this, like the will of the Force is kind of
in a way
lead him that way.
In a way, I mean, but Qui-Gon was also the same one who was forcing training too on Anakin, so
yeah,
a little bit. Yeah, details. Who needs those?
Who need those? Yeah. But and then like I was not, when he walks away, and I thought, well, crap, we're never going to get that moment. But I love the fact that he finally turned around and he's like, I will. And I said, Ben, do you want to meet him?
A nice little sigh. Yeah, a nice sigh from Owen though, before he said it.
Oh, I didn't catch that if he did.
Ben. Yeah.
But yeah, he's like, yeah, Ben, do you want to meet him? Yeah, I absolutely freaking died when he said that, because I was like, holy crap, we're gonna get this Kenobi and Luke interaction. But then panic like surfaced, like, well, how long is this gonna be? Because I didn't want it to undermine anything from that first encounter, that they have.
Yeah, exactly.
Go ahead.
And again, I was actually not expecting hello there, of all things, to be honest with you. It caught me off guard because my mind was racing the first time, like, oh crap. Like, what is this first action going to look like? Is he going to hand him the speeder? Are they going to talk? What's the conversation? Is it going to be small talk? I totally didn't expect it to be a 2-word conversation.
Yeah. But, and yeah, so the hello there, of course, is, everybody's already posted the videos. There's one that they've made with the video and the audio where they say hello there at the same time, all 3 times, which is really cool. And there's more Clone Wars ones too, Clone Wars stuff that they didn't.
Oh yeah,
but we got to get those as well. But yeah, that was obviously very cool. I love his little smirk that he has, and of course he has the T-16 in his hand, so he finally gives him that. So we know how that gets there, because that was killing me. Like, okay, well, it went back to him. How's it going to get back into Luke's hands? I thought he was just going to toss it and say, hey, would you give him this? I didn't realize he would give it to him personally,
or Luke would find it somewhere, or something to that effect, right? Yeah.
Yep. So great.
Which actually would have been kind of a fun little Easter egg too. Yeah.
Yep. Chuck Cage has got a question. We'll come back to that here in just one second. But would you guys like to see a Qui-Gon series getting into his great Jedi exploits? And he's talking about some of the legend stuff, I think, here. But hold that thought, because I want to talk about that Qui-Gon here in just one second. Because as soon as we saw him riding off into the desert, I kind of knew we were going to get it. Like, I was waiting for it. I know we talked about where it was going to happen in the series. They had teased us plenty enough at this point that Qui-Gon was out there or wasn't answering. But I think it also reaffirms what we were saying. He just was not in touch enough with the Force. He wasn't ready. He had not taken that next step to open himself up to be able to see Qui-Gon. And that's a very important piece of the component there that was missing. And had he not gone through everything he had just went through, had he not met Leia, had he not gone and saved Luke Skywalker, fought his fear, overcame his fear, overcame all of the suffering that he was probably feeling and his contact with the Force, he would have never seen Qui-Gon Jinn. And finally Qui-Gon shows up. And so what you said earlier about, okay, so what is his path now? Qui-Gon's kind of one of those, let's just go live in the moment type things, right? So,
right.
He says, we got a lot, what do you say? We got a lot of work to do, or we got,
we have a long road ahead or something like that.
Yeah.
A long way to go. Yeah. Something to that effect. Yeah.
And miles to go before I sleep. There's a poem. But your thoughts, I guess, seeing him, because he looked a little older. I'm going to say that.
It did. The beard was a little interesting looking.
I know you're a beard guy. What was wrong with it? I didn't even catch it.
No, it just like sticks out. Like, it was just kind of spiky. It was different. I'm not complaining. It's just different style. It's similar to what he had in Phantom Menace, but just a little more everywhere and stuff like that. So anyway, it was cool. It was fun. I'm such a huge Liam Neeson fan, first of all, but we knew this had to happen. We knew that as soon as they mentioned Qui-Gon Jinn, Liam Neeson was going to be there for Qui-Gon Jinn. Now, I wasn't quite expecting the actual Force spirit to show up. I thought it'd be more of a voice, but besides that, we pretty much scripted this thing out. Again, it didn't take a lot of origination or originality to come up with that in that interaction, right? But exactly as you said, it is what happened, and kind of how we had talked about it previously. But I think it was really cool. And again, the way that they, Obi-Wan's like, I thought you were never going to come, and of course Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan still has something to learn, right? Well, no, it wasn't me. I've been here the whole time.
Right.
You just couldn't see me. Whether that's figuratively or literally, we don't maybe quite know. But again, it seems reasonable to expect that Qui-Gon was always watching and always, kind of nearby. And again, Obi-Wan just had to be ready. I mean, you can't, he's not ready to learn anything if he's not in the right frame of mind. And now he's in that right frame of mind, ready to learn, ready to know or to understand what the future will require of him for him to, for him to fulfill the rest of his destiny and for the rest of his life and what he needs to do, and to have that patience.
Yeah.
And have his training begin anew.
I like the way he said, took you long enough, like kind of smart ass, right? It kind of plays up on that relationship that they had. Says I was beginning to think he would never come. If you want more Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn, Master and Apprentice, can't talk about that book enough. We did a whole show on it, a couple of shows, I think, maybe.
Well, in the Master and Apprentice story as well, don't forget about that one too. What was that in the
Certain Point of View?
Yeah, Certain Point of View.
Yeah,
that was a good one.
there too.
Yeah, and something else I like about this scene with or the interaction with Qui-Gon here is that, and John Jackson Miller actually tweeted this earlier today, that this series and the Kenobi novel that came out back in, literally 2 months before the Disney takeover or the Disney purchase of Lucasfilm, that book is like a few years after Revenge of the Sith, so it's much further in the past than this is, but it fits really well and they coexist really nicely. And what it does is, and the reason why that is because with the Qui-Gon aspect of it, at the very least, is that Obi-Wan is unable to make contact with Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
And it's because he's not ready. He's not, he's still wallowing a bit. He's still very early in that journey and not ready for that, not ready for that burden, was he, kind of thing. And so I like that it didn't break anything that we love as far as that novel, which is very much beloved by a lot of people. And it's a very good book. And I think Jeff, JW in our community and Patreon member, I think that's his favorite Star Wars book, if I recall. And he's not alone in that regard. I know a lot of people that love that one. So anyway, I like that they still fit together, even though they're totally different stories. And Deborah Chow read it. I think Ewan McGregor read it after the fact, but Deborah Chow read it. And again, they didn't really draw much from it, but it's nice that they can still exist in the same plane of existence and not, still leave that ambiguity about what has Obi-Wan been doing for 10 years.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're almost on a 3-hour show, so I want to just kind of wrap it up. Yeah, I know, right? That's the longest we've ever
right
done.
on time.
But the only thing I want to talk about, because we're going to talk about Reva coming up in a little bit. We'll probably speculate on Roken and everyone else in more depth in future shows. But I guess the only thing that maybe we can end on, or the thing I thought we could end on, is this whole the quote of "The circle is now complete. When I last left you, I was but the learner, but now I am the master." It's the one quote we've not talked about. We kind of danced around a little bit, but
yeah.
Do you feel like this is enough to kind of fulfill that, or do you? And I guess the follow-up question, I think that what people are talking about is a season 2, and what does a season 2 look like specifically? Are we going to get another fight between Obi-Wan and Vader if they go into a season 2? I have my thoughts, and I don't want to spoil anything or persuade you in any way, but just your thoughts before we get out of here.
I don't want a season 2, to be honest with you. I really like how this one wrapped up, and it was a complete story, and it feels like it has reached a really nice conclusion for this part of Obi-Wan. And I can't remember if you and I were talking about this or if I was having a conversation with someone else, because I've just had so many lately, but it was more that this was a specific story that we wanted to tell and learn about with Obi-Wan. It is not, it was this focused thing. Like, what was this transition like for Obi-Wan? It wasn't like how he was living his day to day, or how he found where he was going at the beginning of after Order 66 and all of that. And it also wasn't the days leading up to when he learned Luke. It was a very, very specific story. And so from that regard, I think this is the interesting story of all of that. They could certainly come up with interesting stories, but this is the one we all wanted to do. Anything else you might add on top of that? And I know that him and Vader, I think in the Legends material, may have met multiple times, but I know he and Vader, or Vader and Luke did, but but man, I just don't. It seems like it would start to water that down a little bit. And with this specific quote, though, I think you could take a lot of different scenes that piece all of that together that form into this quote of Vader's perspective. Because I mean, Vader, while he beat the pants off of Kenobi early on, he was misguided, or he was misled and fooled at one point. He had someone try to turn Reva against him at one point. He basically whooped up on Vader and used his own tactics against him when they were chasing him. Mm-hmm. I mean, and then of course he just demolished him here. So I mean, a lot of those things just come up to, I was still very much not the student, right? And again, still never a master, as much as he wants to admit that he was. And so I kind of almost view it as a bit of a elbow to his own ribs these days with what he says in A New Hope.
Yeah.
But what about you, though? I know you've probably got a very well thought out type of thing, where mine's a bit more fragmented.
No. So no, so I think along the same lines as you, I'm fine with it ending here. I don't know that I want. Okay, do I want another Kenobi? Do I want to see Ewan McGregor on screen? Absolutely. Do I want to see? Yeah. Absolutely. Right. Those are just kind of raw reactions and feelings. Does it make sense though? I don't know that it makes sense. I can't. I was thinking about this the last 24 hours. Does it make sense to go into a season 2? If they're going to, if they do, I would almost put money on the fact that they're not going to have Vader fight Kenobi. Like that. That's, to me, it's over. That was the fight. Does that quote line up? The circle is now complete. Learner, master. Yeah, I think so. All the reasons you said. It wasn't very direct, right? We didn't get I think a lot of people were expecting someone to go, "You are but the learner, and I am the master." And like, oh, there it is. There's the callback. Yeah. We didn't get that. But if you go back and look at the body of work of these last 5 episodes, you look at some of the stuff that Kenobi did and how he constantly stayed one step ahead of everybody, and in the end won the battle for different reasons, for a very number of reasons that we've already spent the last 3 hours talking about. I think that's enough to kind of fulfill that line, to fulfill the circle, if you will. So I think we're done with that. If they want to bring back Kenobi to do a second season, it's a very different kind of approach. Like, it would have to, now I feel like going into this series, I was like, they're going to have to get off Tatooine. I don't know that they have to get off Tatooine for this. What do you have left to tell? You've got the Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi relationship. Maybe there's something there with Yoda at some point. I don't know. You've got Reva as well. Maybe he's, he and Reva he's training Reva in some way, or helping her come to terms with everything she's gone through and continue to see the light and take steps forward, right? That becomes more of a Reva kind of Kenobi episode or series. I think they could probably still do that. But if you're thinking that we're probably going to get Vader back or Hayden Christensen back reprising this role, I think, at least from a Kenobi perspective, I think we're done. I think we're past that. And I think it flies in the face of what Vader's saying. Like, for all the reasons we talked about earlier, about him saying to Palpatine, okay, sorry, it's over. I won't do this anymore. Right. I think it flies in the face of that. And I just don't see Palpatine putting up with it. And that completely does change the content or would change the canon context and the canon timeline, because Vader or Palpatine would take some serious actions against him for disobeying that.
Right. And let's just be honest, Obi-Wan is interesting at this stage of his life because of Vader. It's not necessarily because of Luke, because Luke's not really doing a whole lot. He might get into some trouble here and there, and maybe Obi-Wan steps in every once in a while, but there's no real conflict going on. There might be interesting moments in all of that. I'm not saying that there's not stories that could be told, but let's just be honest. It's more fun if Vader's involved and they're having a fight. Mm. Star Wars is about conflict. Star Wars is about battles. It's just part of how Star Wars is. It's got wars in the title, guys. So, I mean, it's just kind of, it's on the page there. And that's why like that we're kind of done with this. If you're going to do something with Reva, do something with Reva.
Right.
You know, Reva is on her own path now. And to be honest with you, I don't think she stays on Tatooine. I think she doesn't interact with Obi-Wan very often, if at all. You know, maybe here and there, but you know, she's on her own path. She has to find out who she is, not necessarily learn from anybody else, but learn who she is and what's important to her and what she wants to do moving forward in her life. You know, so again, when you start piecing all the things together, have him going and doing another adventure with Leia, yeah, that might be fun, but then you start watering down, and I don't want to say break canon because there's always ways to not break it, but you start watering it down and filtering it a bit. And I think we got the story we wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So let's stop while we're ahead, you know, and Hayden Christensen can come back in Ahsoka, you know,
or he is, right.
There's other opportunities for these characters to pop up in other material. Right. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. It might get cameos, but right now I think we're good.
I was going to start speculating on Reva, but I'll save it for the Tuesday.
I'll save it for Tuesday. Yeah.
So the question of whether or not we see Qui-Gon series and his Grey Jedi exploits, I think they've, as technology continues to advance, I think the possibility of us getting additional characters that have aged on and all that, I think it becomes greater and greater if there's a story there to tell. I don't know that this is one that we'll probably get, unfortunately. As much as I'd love to get more Qui-Gon, I know we've always talked about it. They've given us some of it in the comics. We had the Qui-Gon, what was it, that series, that book?
Age of
Republic.
Republic.
Is it a one-shot?
Yeah, it was Age of Republic.
It was Age of Republic. It was a one-shot. That's a cool story. Definitely go check that one out.
But I mean, something like Master and Apprentice would be cool, but Obi-Wan's really young in that, though, too.
Yeah, exactly.
So something like it's a little more difficult. There's stories there, though, that we can pull from.
Mm-hmm.
But I think a lot of them are back when, well, I guess you could probably do when Qui-Gon was younger, but then do you bring Duke? I mean, there's a lot of characters all littered together there, and that becomes more challenging these days.
Yep. Okay. Well, 3 hours, 1 minute later, I think that's going to do it for us tonight on this particular breakdown episode. So, man, the number of people that hung out with us for 3 hours to talk about this is absolutely humbling and overwhelming. So thank you guys for sticking around.
You folks are amazing. And this list of people in the chat tonight is incredible. And I'm going to read it all. I'm going to read it fast. Otherwise, we'll be here for another 3 hours. But sincerest thank you. If you're listening to the podcast, we would love to encourage you to come out and participate in the live stream. Most people seem to be on the YouTube side of things. You can, of course, hit the like button and the subscribe and the little bell to be notified when we're going to go online. Of course, you can always check cantinacast.com or cantinacast.com/events for whatever the next upcoming episode is. But here, special thank yous to everybody who chimed in tonight. Music Train, Sky, Jonathan, Ken, Steph, Lauren, Eugene, Brett, thank you for signing up for Patreon. Qui-Gon J, Leland, Rob, Current Crown, who says he wants to go sign up for Patreon. Thank you, Current Crown. Tim, Matthew Yarbrough, Justin, Alex, Risk, Katya, Stargate Pioneer, Eric McCabe, Headless Nut Stark, that one always makes me laugh. Gary Smith, Jorge, Chuck, Cage, who I believe first time for Chuck Cage. We have a couple newbies in here, and then Matt. Again, thank you all for coming out and making the chat so lively, and we love pulling that stuff on the screen. Albert, great job of picking up and highlighting comments as they were relevant. And look at that. Rob's even wishing you to get healthy.
It's because he's watching the live stream. And
yeah, Rob, you should just send him a note every week because it's about what it takes.
It's my ailing age. No, I appreciate that. I'm gonna go die. So
no, and Gary, and actually, great job, Albert, because it is really tough to do this when you're not feeling well, and he's been very, very under the weather. So great job tonight, and it was important for us to get this out there and get this to you guys. So
yep. No,
great job, my friend.
My darling, I can't get enough of your love, baby. I don't know whoever was asking for the Barry White stuff. There you go. Or is that Barry White?
I was looking for Barry Manilow, but
oh no, it's totally different. I'm gonna go record some sound bites with my voice like this and submit them for some like audiobooks or voiceovers.
Then they'll call you up and they'll be like, "Well, who are you? No, we want to talk to Albert Padilla."
Yeah, this is me. Okay, I'm kidding. All right, guys.
Just give him your brother's name.
Yeah. I didn't get a chance to do the credits. So Sky and some of the folks that signed up last week. Sorry about that. I just have not been feeling well. But now that I've got this whole host of new people that have come on to Patreon, I'll get those updated here. So I'm going to run the old credits. And don't forget, again, we'll be back here on Tuesday to talk about the Riva for the Patreon episode. Again, that will be live. If you're not a Patreon member and you want to join the live stream, you can certainly do that. And we look forward to seeing you guys there. So help join us there. Any final words before we get out of here?
Nope, it's been fun, man. Let's roll it.
All right. See you guys soon.
You're still listening? Wow, that's amazing. Well, I'm here to give you the disclaimer. Normally we do a big, long, drawn-out disclaimer thing saying what's what and who's what and all that other stuff, but I think you guys kind of know that Lucasfilm and Disney have no affiliation with us at all, and we have none with them. We talk about Star Wars, which is their property and all that other good, fun stuff, but I think you can tell which is our stuff and which is their stuff. If you can't, well, then send a lawyer to send an email to me, and I'll be glad to chat with them. Other than that, you know what's what, so that's your disclaimer.